Hymn to Kali Karpurati Stotra by Arthur Avalon, Sir John Woodroffe, with introduction and commentary by Vimalananda Shvam. Publisher's note. The Orientalist system of transliteration has been followed in this work. Preface. This celebrated Kaula Stotra, which is now translated from the Sanskrit for the first time, is attributed to Mahakala himself. The text used is that of the edition published at Calcutta in 1899 by the Sanskrit Press Depository, with a commentary in Sanskrit by the late Mahamahopadhyaya Krishnanatha Nyaya Pankanana, who was both very learned in Tantra Shastra and faithful to his Dharma. He thus refused the offer of a good government post made to him personally by a former lieutenant governor on the ground that he would not accept money for imparting knowledge. Some variants in reading are supplied by this commentator. I am indebted to him for the notes, or substance of the notes, marked KB. To these I have added others, both in English and Sanskrit, explaining matters and allusions familiar doubtless to those for whom the original was designed, but not so to the English or even ordinary Indian reader. I have also referred to the edition of the Stotra, published by Ganesha Kandragosa at Calcutta in 1891, with a translation in Bengali by Gurunatha Vidyanidhi, and commentary by Durgarama Siddhantavagasha Bhattacharya. I publish for the first time Vimalananda Swami's commentary, to which I again refer later. When in this introduction, or in the commentary, I have not mentioned these two works, my authorities are the Tantras, or Tantric works, which I cite, or the information I have gathered from those whom I have consulted. One of the chief features of this stotra is that it gives the mantrodhara of the Dakshina Kalika. It not only gives us the dhyana, yantra, sadhana, and svarupa varnana of the Mahadeva, but it also contains the chief mantras of Dakshina Kalika. The adjective Tava Manu Samudarana Janu, qualifying Idam Stotram in Shloka 21, expressly states this fact. Among the various mantras of Dakshina Kalika, the greatest is the Vidya Rajna, consisting of 22 syllables, Dvavim Saksar. This mantra gives the fullest and the truest symbol of the Svarupa of her. This mantra is contained in the first 5 shlokas. The first shloka contains Krim, 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 3 aksaras. Second, Hum, 2 aksaras. Third, Hrim, 2 aksaras. Fourth, Dakshine Kalaike, 6 aksaras. Fifth, Krim, Hum, Hrim, Svaha, 9 aksaras. So the first 5 shlokas give us altogether 22 aksaras, i.e. the full Vidyarajna. In Vimalananda Swami's Tika of the 5th shloka, in the revised Sanskrit text, he has proved by quotations from the 9th patala of Shaktananda Tarangin that this 22-syllabled mantra is the full and true representation of the Svarupa of the Mahadeva. See the quotation which begins with Krim Karo Mastakam Devi, Krim Karashka Lalatakam, and ends with Sva Shabdana Padadvanvam Hakarena Naham Tatha. The words Svarupam, 5th, and Sakalam, 6th, point to this Vidyaraj. After the full Vidyaraj has been given in the first 5 shlokas, the 6th shloka gives the various other mantras of less importance and significance, ranging from 1-syllabled to 9-syllabled, 15-syllabled, 21-syllabled, and so forth. This mantrodhara has been made following the authority of Kalika Shruti, Niruttara Tantra, and other tantras. Many commentators, however, have apparently, in the view of Vimalananda, failed to consult the above authorities and have thus fallen into errors and have given a different mantrodhara. Some take the first shloka to give a 1-syllabled mantra, the second sloka, as also the third, 2 2-syllabled mantras, the 5th a 9-syllabled one, and so on, a view which it is contended is opposite to such passages as Atha Hainam Brahmarandra, Brahma Svarupinam Apnoti. Brihadbanu Jayam Ukaret in the first sukta of Kalikopanishad, or passages in Niruttara Tantra, beginning with Atha Vaksye Kulashani Daksina Kalika Manum, and ending with Sarva Mantra Mai Vidya Sursti Sthityanta Karin. The Swami further refers me to the end of the Kalikopanishad, where dealing with the various mantras of the Daksina Kalika, it is said, Atha Sarvam Vidyam Prathamam Ekam Dvayam Vatrayam Va Namatraya Putitam Va Kirtva Japet. The great Tantric Purnananda Giri, explaining the passage, says, Sarvam Vidyam Iti Purvoktadvavim Shatyaksarya Prathama Bijam Va Bijadvayam Va etc. From the above consideration, it is clear that at the very beginning, in the first 5 shlokas, the 22-syllabled mantra is given, and then the others. It may be added here that the fact of Mahakala's composing the hymn in 22 shlokas, not more nor less, is also an indication of the correctness of the Swami's view, who, in further support of it, cites 5 shlokas dealing with the mantrodhara from the Kramastava of the Daksina Kalika under the first 5 shlokas of the Karpurari, which will be found in the printed text. In course of revising his Vyakhya Vimalananda Swam has, in the first 6 shlokas, given good grounds to prove that the stotra not only contains the mantrodhara and the sadhana of Shri Shri Daksina Kalika, but also in it are given the mantras and Rahasya Puja of Shri Shri Tara and Shri Shri Tripura Sundar. In addition to the mantrodhara, the following matters are contained in the stotra. Number of slokas: dhyana 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11. Yantra 18. Sadhana 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Madhya 13. Mamsa 19. Maithuna 10. Falashruti 21, 22. The shlokas 9, 12, 14 contain stuti only. Slokas 10, 15 through 18, and 20 refer to the Tantric Varakara sadhana. Varakara is for the class of sadhaka, who are Virabhava and Abhisikta. To those who follow Pashvakara, this ritual is strictly forbidden. The nature of the Rahasya Puja is indicated in the text, to which I have added an explanatory commentary in English and Sanskrit. To the Pashu, sadhana by night is prohibited, for it connotes in Sakta sadhana worship with the Pankatattva. The Pashu is still bound by the Pasha, bonds of Dasir, etc., and he is, therefore, not adhikar, for that which, if undertaken by the unfit, will only make these bonds stronger. For him, on the contrary, there are severe restrictions in this matter, for, as the Shaktakrama, cited by the commentator, says, Maithunam tatkatalapam, tadgosthim parivarjayat. The Pashu should avoid Maithuna, conversation on the subject, and the like. The Pashu should avoid the 8 forms of Maithuna known as Astanga Maithuna, vis-a-vis Smaranam, thinking upon it, Kurtanam, talking of it, Kali, play with women, Preksanam, looking upon women, Guhyabhasanam, talk in private with women, Samkalpa, wish or resolve for Maithuna, Adhyavasaya, determination towards it, as well as Kriyanispati, actual accomplishment. The Nitya Tantra, which the commentator cites, says, Ratrau naiva yajad devim sandhyayam vaparahnake. He, the Pashu, should never worship the Devi during the latter part of the day or in the evening or at night. To this, from amongst many other authorities, I may add the Svatantra, which says that the Pashubhava Sadhaka should do 1 lakh of japa in daytime, and that a Vara devoted to his own akara should do 1 lakh of japa at night. Pashubhavarato, mantra diva laksa, japam karet. Svakaranirato, viro ratrao, laksa japam karet. In connection with this verse, I must observe that in the notes to verse 20, it is said that the first half of the 20th shloka is meant for Pashu Sadhakas, and that the second half refers to the Purnabhisikta Vrasadaka, as also that the word param, afterwards, means and refers to the time when the Pashu, having received Abhiseka, enters Varakara and is Adhikar for the midnight Purashkarana, Vimalananda tells me that this is wrong and that the whole shloka has reference to the vira, or divya sadhaka, and that no portion of it refers to the pashu sadhaka. The quotation just made from the Svatantra Tantra no doubt seems to lend support to the view that the first part of the shloka refers to the pashu. But he informs me, and I fully accept the correction, that he and other followers of the Shastra knew the passage to bear a meaning which is consonant with his view. That is, it means this. Mantra means the virasadhaka. The mantra should perform laksa japa in the daytime following the akara of the pashu bhavarata. The virasadhaka should perform laksa japa in the night following his own akara, svachara nirata. The word svakara, own akara, points to his interpretation being correct. In support of his view, the Svam cites the following verses which all say the same thing, namely that the initiate should be brahmakar, during day and at night, worship according to kulakara. Kaulaval says, Naktambhoj havishyanam japid vidyam divashuchi, dvivasa sarvatha viro brahmakara bhavitsada, ratrao sampujayad devam kulakara kramena, tu dvijanmanam tu sarvesam dvidha vidhi rihocyate. Again, Kalikopanishad says, Sambhava deksasu rata shaktesu vadiva brahmakara ratrao nagna sada maithuna saktamanasa japa pujari niyamam kuryad iti. Kaulaval again says, Unmukhya kalikayashka vishesa kathyate dhuna, divase brahmakaryena sviya samkhya japam karet, ratrao mamsasaver matsyer mudrabhir maithunodbhave. The reason of the virasadhaka being instructed to adopt the akara of brahmakar in the daytime is the necessity for the concealment of the virakara from the public which Tantra so often insists upon. Shiva says that virakara cannot be understood aright by the common people and therefore must be concealed as closely as a man should conceal his own mother's sin, gopayet mater jaravat. Moreover, the worship of Kali in Pashvakara is totally forbidden by Shiva. The Pashu is precluded by Tantra from the worship of Kali. For example, the Niruttara Tantra says, Divya bhavam virabhavam vinakalim prapujayet, pujane narakam yati tasya dukham pade pashubhava rato devi yadi kalim prapujayet, rauravam narakam yati yavad abhuta samplavam. By the worship of Kali without Divyabhava and Varabhava, the worshipper suffers pain at every step and goes to hell. If a man who is of the Pashubhava worships Kali, then he goes to the Raurava hell until the time of final dissolution. Vimalananda Swami says, the worship of Kali without the use of wine, though seen in many places, is Pauranic and not Tantric, i.e., sanctioned by the Tantra. Verses 1 through 8 and 11, the first part of verse 20 and 21, except at midnight, deal with japa of the mantra of and dhyana upon the deva, which of course may be done by the pashu. Verses 9, 12, 13, and 14 are stuti, and 22 is the usual phala shloka, which states the reward to be gained by the reading of the stotra. Verses 10, 15 through 18, and the second portion of verse 20 deal with lata sadhana. The Shakti of this sadhana is ordinarily the own wife of the sadhaka, married according to the Vedic injunctions, the Svashakti, or Adyashakt, as she is technically called in Tantra. One's own wife is Adyashakt, and sadhana should be done with her aid, Adyashakt, Svadara, Syat, Tameva Shirtya, Sadhayat. With her is practiced that Shakt sadhana, the aim of which is the acquirement of self-control, which, checking the outward-going current, places the sadhaka upon the path of nivritti. Indeed, the Kaulikarkanad Pika says, without Adyashakti, worship is but evil magic. Adyashaktim vina puja abhikaraya kalpate. It is only the siddha, which term is here used in the special sense of one who has obtained complete control over his passions, to whom is permitted another Shakti, Parashakti. So the Pranatosin quotes, a man shall obtain siddhi with his own Shakti, and afterwards, that is, when he is siddha, he should make japa with Parashakti. svashaktau siddhim apnuyat, parashaktau tada japet. And similarly, Niruttara Tantra says that the sadhaka who is siddha in kulakara may worship another woman. Siddha mantra kulakare parayosam prapujayet. In both these cases, parashakti has a double meaning vis-a-vis another woman that is corporeal woman, or supreme that is the supreme woman who in the body is kundalini shakti. This latter appears to be sense in the quotation which speaks of the Siddha mantra. It has been said also, as in the Mahanirvana Tantra, that parashakti must, if unmarried, be married either by Vaidika or Shaiva rites, or, if married and the husband is dead, according to the latter rite. Further, that which determines the moral character of an act is the intention with which it is done. As the Kaulavalya says, when a man's intention is bad, then his act is so, otherwise there is no fault. Ata eva yada yashya vasana kutsita bhavet, tada dosaya bhavati nanyatha dusanam kvachit. As an example of the same act and varying intention, it is aptly said, a wife is kissed with one feeling and a daughter's face with another. Pavena kumbita kanta, pavena duhitrananam. A mantrin who is given over to lust, for the subjugation of which the sadhana is prescribed, goes, as is said in the Tantrasara, to the hell, called Raurava. Lingayonirato mantra Raurakang Narakang Brajet. In the words of the Aharabheda Tantra, Vamakaro Bhavet, Tatra Vama Bhutva Yajet Param. One may be a Vamakar if one can worship Vama being oneself a woman. This is on the principle that a worshipper should always be like the object of his worship. Woman is Devata, and the embodiment of the Supreme Shakti, and is as such honored and worshipped, and is, when Puja Shakti, never the subject of enjoyment. Verses 15 and 16, as sufficiently appears from their context, refer to the sadhana of those who are not siddha. Verses 10, 17, and 18 apply to both sadhaka and siddha, as to verse 20, see ante. By such sadhana, the last vestiges of the most powerful of such bonds is sought to be destroyed, and with such destruction, the seed of karma and rebirth. He, like Shiva, becomes destroyer of Smara, and Shiva himself. Verses 4, 18, and 20 refer directly to this fruit of sadhana. Others indicate the material and intellectual greatness on earth of the sadhaka, who devoutly worships the deva. To him is given mastery over all persons and things of the world, which on death, if siddha, he leaves for the dwelling by the supreme feet, verse 17, or nirvana. As Shiva says in the Kalivilasa Tantra, I have told you, my beloved, all about the 5 tattvas, sadhana, in the cremation ground, and with the funeral pyre, now listen to the doctrine of the Siddhavira. Madhyam matsyam tatha mamsamudram maithunam eva kya, shmashana sadhanam bhadrachita sadhanam eva kya. Etatto kathitam sarvam siddhaviramatam shrinu. It is the sadhana of the cremation ground on which all passion is burnt away. There are 2 kinds of cremation ground, of which the one is the funeral pyre, Sita, and the other Yonirupa Mahakali. As the first chapter of the Niruttara Tantra says, there are 2 cremation grounds, namely, that which is the funeral pyre, and the Yoni, which, in its sukshma sense, is the Deva, the Shmasana, being in the same sense dissolution, or pralaya. Shmashanam dvividham devichita yoni prakritita. In even the sthula sense, the sadhaka must be susadhaka, for union without right disposition, japa, dhyana, etc., is the animal maithuna of a pashu. Shloka 19 refers to animal and human sacrifice to Kali. Reference to this sacrifice is also made in the Kalika Purana, and the Tantrasara speaks of a substitute in the figure of a man made of the paste of cereals. The latter work also says that by the sacrifice of a man one acquires great prosperity, and the 8 siddhis, Naradate, Mahardi, Syad, Astasiddhir, Anuttama. But it adds that this is not for all, for the Brahmana may not make such a sacrifice. Brahmananam Narabalidane Nadikara, and if he does so, he goes to hell. Moreover, according to K.B., who cites as his authority the Yamala quoted in the Kalikalpalata, the king alone can make such a sacrifice. This leads one to point out that the hymn has other than these gross stula meanings. In Brahmanism, everything has three aspects: supreme, para, subtle, suksma, and gross, stula. Thus the 19th shloka, when referring to the sacrifice of various animals and of man himself, intends, according to the subtle sense, the 6 great sins for which they stand, ranging from lust, goat, to pride, man. It is these which must be sacrificed by the knowers who are worshippers of the mother, the age of material sacrifice, so universal throughout the world, having passed away. So again, the word Parashakti may refer to the Supreme Shakti, or may be used in the sense of a Shakti other than the Svashakti, or Sadhaka's wife, who may, in the case of the competent Adhikar, be an associate in the worship on the principles stated in the Guhyakali Khanda of the Mahakala Samhita. As is the competency of the Sadhaka, so must be that of the Sadhika. In this way, only is success attained, and not otherwise, even in 10 million years. Yadrisha sadhaka prokta, sadhikapika tadrisha, tata siddhim avapnoti, nanyatha varsakotibhi. This principle rests on the fact that man and woman together make one whole, and can only cooperate in the rites where the attainments or adhikara of each is the same. But this does not necessarily mean that such cooperation is by Maithuna in its sexual sense. Quite the contrary. In the same way, in the Vedic ritual, the wife is Sahadharman. But such ritual is only for the competent within the bounds of Shastric injunction, for, as the Shakti Sangama Tantra says, though a man be a knower of the 3 times, past, present, and future, and though he be a controller of the 3 worlds, even then he should not transgress the rules of conduct for men in the world, were it only in his mind. Yadyapyasti trikalajñas trilokya varsanaksama, tathapi laukikacharam manasapi nalanghayat. But Parashakti, again, may mean no woman at all, but Supreme Shakti, or the Mother herself, whose forms they are, and in such sense, the union of the Sadhaka is with the woman within himself, the Kundalini Shakti, who in yoga unites with her supreme husband, Paramashiva. The context must be known as, in the misunderstood saying, Maithunena Mahayog, Mamatulyo na Samshaya, which does not mean, as a recent English work on Hinduism suggests, that by sexual connection, Maithuna, the Mahayog Vishkas becomes without doubt the equal of Shiva or God. This is on its face absurd, and had it not been that such criticism is clouded with prejudice, the absurdity would be recognized. How can sexual connection make anyone God or his equal? The person spoken of is a Mahayogsha, who, as such, has no connection physical or otherwise with women. Maithuna means action and reaction, and coupling, and sexual intercourse is only one form of such coupling. Thus, when mantra is said, there is a coupling, or Maithuna, of the lips. In yoga, there is a coupling, Maithuna, of the active and changeless principles of the universe. The saying means that the Maya Yogwar, who unites Kundala Shakti in his body with Paramashiva, becomes himself Shiva. So again, it is said, in an apparently alarming verse quoted by Tarkalamkara in his commentary on the Mahanirvana, Materyona oksipet, limgam bhaginya stanamardhanam, guror murdhni param datva punarjanma na vidyate. This verse, in its literal sense, means that if anyone commits incest with his mother and sister and places his foot on the head of his guru, he is liberated and is never again reborn. But of course, that is not the meaning. The first half of the line refers to the placing of the Jivatma in the triangle situated in the Muladhara center with the Svayambhulinga in it, which triangle is called Materyoni. The linga is the Jivatma. From this point upwards, after union with Kundalini, the Jivatma is to be led. The union of Jivatma with Kundalin is spoken of in the second half of the first line. Kundalin is the sister of the Jivatma, both being in the same body. The meaning of the last line is as follows. After union of Kundalin and Jivatma, the united couple are led up to the Sahasrara, or 1,000-petaled lotus in the head, which is situated above the 12-petaled lotus, which again is the abode of the Guru. When the yogi is above the 12-petaled lotus, his feet may be described as being on the head of the Guru. Moreover, it is said that at this point, the relationship of Guru and disciple ceases. Matar-yoni is also the term given to those sections of the fingers between the joints on which count of the japa or recital of the mantra is not to be done. If Matar-yonim suggests incest, then this verse is a prohibition of it. Matar-yonim parityajya viharet sarvayonisu. There are many other technical terms in Tantra Shastra which it is advisable to know before criticizing it. One of the tests to which an intending disciple may be put consists in being questioned as to such passages. If he is a gross-minded or stupid man, his answer will show it. In order, therefore, that the hymn may be understood in its various aspects, I have given in the notes explanations of, or in respect of its sthula, or gross meaning. This is followed by the valuable commentary given to me some years ago and now first published by Vimalananda Swam, which is called Svarupa Vyakhya. That is, it gives the subtle suksma, or, as we should say in English, the inner sense or esoteric meaning according to the teaching of his own guru, Mahamahopadhyaya Ramananda Swam, Siddhantapankanana. The textbooks and commentary are preceded by an admirable little essay of Swami Vimalananda by way of introduction to the Vimalananda Dayan Svarupa Vyakhya on his Lord of Hymns, which is commonly known as the Karpurati Stotra, chanted by Mahakala II and in honor of Daksina Kalika. It, as also the Inner Sense commentary, are written for those liberation-seeking sadhakas who, worshipping Shrividya, meditate not on the gross form, Sthulamurti, but on the Svarupa Tattva of Brahmavidya Kalika. As such, many will be glad, as I was, to read it, and will derive benefit therefrom. I may note here that the Swam, while revising the Vyakhya, has given a new interpretation of the line Te Laksma Lasya Lila Kamala Dala Darsha Vamarupa Bhavanti in the 5th shloka, and of Rati Rasa Mahananda Niratam in the 13th shloka. On the attainment of Siddhi, ritual ceases. There is neither sacrifice nor worship nor yoga, purashkarana, vrata, japa, or other karma. For all sadhana ceases when it has borne its fruit in Siddhi. The Siddha Kaula is beyond all rules. For the meaning of these and other terms, the reader is referred to the author's Principles of Tantra, Tantra Tattva, Shakti and Shakta, Serpent Power, and Garland of Letters, which is a study on the Mantra Shastra, and for other hymns to the Deva, his and Ellen Avalon's Hymns to the Goddess, translated from the Sanskrit of the Tantra, Purana, and the Deva Stotra of Shankaracharya, which gives other specimens of the Hindu hymnal, of which that now published is but one and a special type. Arthur Avalon, Puri, 30, May 1922. Invocation. Aim. I make obeisance to the Lord Guru, the wish-granting tree of Suras, eternal consciousness and bliss itself, the highest of the highest, Brahman, Shiva himself. I make obeisance to her who by her Shakti of 3 gunas creates, maintains, and at the end of the kalpa withdraws the world, and then alone is. Devoutly I call to mind her, the mother of the whole universe, Shiva herself. Om. Obeisance to the Supreme Devata. Here follows an introduction to the Vimalananda Dayini commentary on that Lord of Hymns, called the Karpurati Stotra, to Srimad Daksina Kalika. All good and all-powerful Parameshvara is without beginning or end. Though in himself nirguna, he is the adhara of the 3 gunas. Though himself formless, He creates, preserves, and withdraws the world of extended matter, prapancha, by means of the avarana and viksepa shaktis of his own maya, which can make that possible which seems impossible. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad says that by meditation was seen the Svashakti of the Deva, who is the abode of all causes, associated with Kalatattva. In the Niruttara Tantra, Shiva speaks of the three-eyed corpse-like one, Nirguna, but also seat of gunas, associated with Shakti. Though himself without beginning, middle, or end, he creates and is the material cause of the world which has a beginning, middle, and end. For this reason, the Tantras and other Shastras call him Adinatha, Mahakala, Paramashiva, and Paramabrahman. It is this unlimited, undivided, beginningless, and endless Mahakala who is imagined to be limited by the sun, moon, and planets, and as such is called by the names of Kala, Kastha, Muhurta, Yama, day, night, Paksa, month, season, half-year, year, yuga, kalpa, and so forth. It is he who divides time into Kala, Kastha, and so forth, and as Vyasti is called by the name Kala and the rest. He is named Paramashiva Mahakala when creating, preserving, and withdrawing the millions of worlds. Apart from individual name and form, he exists as the samasti of them, and the endless supreme greatness, Paramomahan. Vishnu Purana says that Bhagavan Kala is without beginning or end. From him appears the limited in creation. Atharvaveda says that Kala created beings, Praja, he is Prajapati. From Kala was self-born Kashyapa and Tapas. Mahakala is omniscient, since he is all-pervading, dependent on none, and the Atma of Isle. Kurma Purana also says that he is the supreme, imperishable, without beginning or end, all-pervading, independent, the Atma of all who fascinates Manohara, all minds, by his greatness. Kalamadava cites Vishnu Dharmotara as saying that he is called Kala because of his dissolving Kalanat, all beings, and he is Parameshvara because he is himself without beginning or end. Mahakala is himself Nirguna and Niskriya, but his Shakti makes the sun and other heavenly lights rise, stay, and set. It is by the power of the Shakti of Kala that men and other jivas are conceived in the womb, are born, attain childhood, boyhood, middle and old age, and leave the world on death. In the Shanti Parva of Mahabharata, Vedavyasa says that it is through Kala that women bear, that birth and death occur, winter, summer, and rains come, and the seed germinates. Even Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra appear, stay, and disappear through the Shakti of Kala. None can escape its operation. Vishnu Samhita says that even those devas who create and withdraw the world are themselves withdrawn by Kala. Kala or time is certainly then the stronger. Mahakala is called Mahakali because he is one and the same and not different from his eternal Shakti. It is she who is Mahavidya, Mahadeva, Mahamaya, and Parabrahmarupin. As Adinatha Mahakala is the first creator of the world, so the Shakti of Mahakala, the merciful Mahakali, is the Adiguru of the world. Yogina Tantra says that Mahakali is the mother of the world, and one with Mahakala, as is shown in the Ardhanarishvara Murti. It was this Brahmavidya who, Yogin Tantra, 10th Patala, at the beginning of this kalpa, was heard as a bodiless voice from the sky by Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshvara, who were then told to perform tapasya for the acquisition of creative and other Shaktis. It was this Aniruddha Sarasvat, who in the Satya Yuga appeared in the heavens before Indra and other proud devatas in the form of a brilliant yaksa, and crushing the pride of the devas Agni and Vayu in the form of all beautiful Uma, taught Brahmatattva to Indra, the king of the devas. This Kali again, who is Paramestiguru and grants Kaivalya, compassionating the sensuous and short-lived Jaivas of the terrible Kali Yuga, revealed the Shambhav Vidya. This, which was taught in the form of conversations between Deva and Shvara, had been during the 3 preceding ages kept as concealed as a lady of high family from public gaze. It contained 3 sets of 64 agamas each, which revealed the path of liberation for these jivas. Though she is herself eternal and Saksidananda Rupan, she at times, out of compassion for sadhakas, assumes forms fitted for their sadhana. Similarly, the Veda, Agama, and the rest, though everlasting portions of the Shabda Brahmarupan, are only revealed to sadhakas at different times in the several yugas. When the Mahadeva, who is consciousness, Sinmay, at the beginning of the Kalpa, was pleased by the tapasya of Devarudra, floating on the Kausal waders, she assumed the Virat aspect and became thus visible to him. At that time, by the command of Mahadev, the Devarudra saw in the Susumna millions of universes, Brahmanda, and millions of Brahmas, Visnus, and Maheshvaras in them. The Deva, greatly wondering in the heart lotus of Mahadeva, there saw the Murti of Shabda Brahman consisting of Agamas, Nigamas, and other Shastras. He saw that of that Murti, Agama was the Paramatma, the 4 Vedas with their Angas were the Jivatma, the 6 systems of philosophy, Darshana, were the senses, the Mahapuranas and Upapuranas were the gross body, the Smrtis were the hands and other limbs, and all other Shastras were the hairs of that great body. He also saw the 50 Matrika, letters, resplendent with tejas on the edges and petals of her heart lotus. Within the pericarp of the lotus of the Viradrupan, he saw the Agamas, brilliant as millions of suns and moons, replete with all Dharma and Brahmajnana, powerful to destroy all Maya, full of all siddhis and Brahmanirvana. By the grace of Mahakali, he fully mastered the Veda, Vedanta, Puranas, Smriti, and all other Shastra. Later, Brahma and Vishnu received this knowledge of Agama and Nigama from him. In the Satyayuga, Brahma revealed the Smrtis, Puranas, and other Shastra to the Devarsis. In this way, Brahmavidya was promulgated to the world. This, therefore, is authority to show that just as Brahman is everlasting, so are the Agamas and Nigamas, which tell of Brahman. Just as in the Satya and other yugas, only the 3 twice-born castes wearing the sacred thread, but not the Sudra and other low castes, were entitled to worship according to the Veda, so in those 3 yugas only Devarsis, Brahmarsis, and Rajarsis, who had conquered their passions and knew Advaita doctrine and Brahman, were entitled to the Agama Shastra, which destroys all sense of difference caused by ignorance and grants knowledge of Advaita Tattva. By Shiva's command, they kept it as secret in their heart, as they would a knowledge of their own mother's illicit love. By Upasana, they became liberated whilst yet living, Jivanmukta, and attained to Brahmanirvana. At that time, the Upasana of the Agama was unknown to sadhakas devoted to karma. For this reason, many people nowadays think the Tantra Shastra to be of recent origin. Probably all know that in the first 3 yugas Brahmana boys, after investiture with the sacred thread, used to learn the Karmakanda and Jnanakanda of the Veda orally from their preceptors. The Veda was not then classified or reduced to writing. Towards the close of the Dvapara Yuga, Shri Krishna Dvaipayana Maharshi Vedavyasa divided the Veda into 4 parts and reduced it to writing. This, however, does not show that the Veda is a recent production. The supreme science, Paravidya, which is contained in the Agama, was also handed down from generation to generation of gurus in the first 3 yugas, and is being now similarly transmitted. Towards the end of the Dvapara Yuga, and at the beginning of the Kali age, merciful Shiva, impelled by compassion for humanity bound in the toils of ignorance, divided the Tantra Shastra, which is unlimited knowledge, into 3 sets of 64 parts each, according to the necessity of different adhikars, and then told them to Ganapati and Kartikeya, the 2 beloved sons of Parvata. They repeated these tantras to rishis of Siddhashramas, and these last, in their turn, told them to their own disciples. Of the Arsis who knew Agama, The chief was Dattatreya, an incarnation of Vishnu. At the beginning of the Kalpa, the ancient Brahma Vidya, contained in the Agama, appeared from out the Paramesti Guru, who is Mahabrahma Vidya, and exists in man's heart, unlimited and imperishable. If sadhana is done according to the instructions of a Sadguru, it becomes visible in the sadhaka's heart. Upasana, in the Vedic form, predominated in the Satya Yuga. In those days, Brahmanas and other twice-born castes, impelled by a desire for wealth, progeny, and so forth, used to worship Indra, Agni, Vayu, Surya, Soma, Varuna, and other devas, presiding over particular Shaktis of Parameshvara, in whom all Shaktis reside. But desire-free Brahmarsis and Maharsis did sadhana of Brahmavidya, the full and perfect Shakti. And so we see in the 10th mandala, 125, of the Rigveda Samhita, that Mahadev appeared in the heart of the daughter of Maharshi Ambran, and so told the true nature of Brahmavidya to Arsis. This is the Devasukta, full of Advaita Tattva, the hymn telling of the true nature of Brahmavidya in the Veda. In the Treta and other yugas, the Brahmanas and other twice-born devoted to the Karmakanda used to perform yajnas and so forth, according to the Smriti Shastras of Manu and others. But Brahmarsi Vasistha in Sunakara, Rajarsi Vishvamitra, see Gandharva Tantra, first Patala, Videharaja Janaka, Bhrigarama, the son of Jamadagni, see Kalikula Sarvasva, Sri Ramakandra and other high-souled men were worshippers of Brahmavidya, the full and perfect Shakti. Again in the Dvapara Yuga, despite the existence of Vedic and Smarta cults, the Agnihotra Yajna and other rites used to be performed according to the Puranas. But high-souled Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, see Radha Tantra, Deva Bhagavata, and Mahabharata, Anushasana Parva, the 5 Pandavas, namely Yudhisthira, and others the high-souled Rajarsi Bhishma, the great Muni Vedavyasa, high-souled Shukadeva, Asita, Devala, and Brahmarsis, such as Durvasa, were worshippers of Mahavidya, the perfect Shakti. Of this the Mahabharata and other books provide particular proofs. In the present Kali Yuga, also the 10 Shamskaras, such as marriage and so forth of the twice-born, and the obsequial ceremonies such as Shraddha are performed according to Vedic ritual. Smriti governs Kandrayana and other matters relating to ashrama and legal affairs such as inheritance. The autumnal Durga Puja and other vratas are performed according to the Puranas, but initiation, upasana of Brahman with Shakti, and various practices of yoga are done according to the ritual of the Agama Shastra. This latter is of 3 kinds according to the prevalence of the gunas, namely Tantra, Yamala, and Damara. There are in all 192 Agamas current, namely 64 each in Ashvakranta, Rathakranta, and Vishnukranta. Many Tantras were lost in Buddhist and Mohammedan times, and the few which still remain with sadhakas in different parts of the country are not shown by them to any but to their disciples, so that these also are about to be lost. The late Rasika Mohana Chattopadhyaya, with great effort and cost, saved some of these, and the English Arthur Avalon has done the same, and I hope yet others will in future be rescued by him. In the Yogin Tantra, Shvara says to Deva that the difference between Vedas and Agamas is like that between Jayava and Atma, that is between Jayava, covered with avidya, and Shvara, who is full of vidya. Indra and other devas who used to be worshipped as Shvaras in yajnas, held under the Karmakanda or Samhita of the Vedas, are in Tantra Shastra worshipped as the presiding devatas of the Dikpalin Shakti, of her who is all Shaktis, Sarva Shakti Svarupin. The 3 Shvaras Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra of the Vedas and Puranas are in Tantra Shastra, the presiding devatas of the creative, preservative, and dissolving Shaktis of Mahadevi. As such, they are worshipped as the supports of the couch of the Mahadev. She in the Devagata says that Brahma, Vishnu, Ashvara, Sadashiva are 5 Mahapreta at my feet. They are constituted of the 5 Bhuta and represent the 5 different elements of matter. I, however, she says, am unmanifested consciousness, Chit, and in every way beyond them. Again the Veda says, all this is verily Brahman. Despite this Mahavakya, various distinctions are made, such as those of Kasta, Adhikara of men and woman, and so forth. So a male Brahmana may say Vedic mantras, but not Brahmana women. Distinction was again made between objects as between the water of the Ganges and a well. All such distinctions are wholly opposed to the spirit of the great word, Mahavakya. The Tantra Shastra says that the Supreme Brahman is both subtle and gross. In dependence on the truth of this Mahavakya Tantric, sadhakas purify wine which is not to be taken and drunk, according to Veda. Considering it to be as holy as nectar, they offer it into the mouth of Kula Kundalin, who is consciousness itself, Chitsvarupin. Again, in accordance with Veda, the Tantra holds food to be sacred, and knowing that food is Brahman, ordains the offering of it to Mahadeva. This offered food is Mahaprasada, and very holy and rare, even for Devas, and whether it be brought by a Kandala, or even fallen from the mouth of a dog. The Vedas and Smriti say that the Kandala and other low castes are untouchable. On touching them, one must bathe, do Agamarshana, and so forth. But the Tantra Shastra says that even a Kandala, who has a knowledge of Kula doctrine and Brahman, is superior to a Brahmana who does not know Brahman. The Tantra Shastra again says that during the Kakra, all castes are equal. Since all are children of the one mother of the world, no distinctions should be made at the time of worshipping her. It is on this tantric authority that no caste distinctions are observed in the matter of eating and so forth in the Virajaksetra of Sri Shri Vimala Deva. The Veda again prohibits the performance of yajna, or worship, after the taking of food. Tantra Shastra, however, says that one should not worship Kalika whilst suffering from hunger or thirst, otherwise she becomes angry. That is, since Shiva and Jiva are really one, it is futile to worship the Paramatma, saying, I offer Naivedya, when the Jiva, who is one with it, is in want of food and drink. Smarti again, which explains Veda ordains that the Shalagrama stone which represents Narayana should not be touched or worshipped by any but Brahmanas. On the other hand, the Tantra Shastra ordains that the Banalinga representation of the Brahman may be touched and worshipped not only by Brahmanas, but by Shudras, Kandalas, and women. In fact, the Karmakanda of Veda contains many such ordinances opposed to Brahman knowledge. For this reason, Bhagavan Shri Krishna has said in the Gita that the Vedas are concerned with objects constituted of the 3 gunas, Triguna Visaya, and bids Arjuna to free himself of the gunas. He says the Veda contains the Karmakanda, but that he who seeks the Brahman state above the gunas should abandon the Karmakanda and perform sadhana, according to Shastra, by which liberation is gained. In spite, however, of differences in worship and practice, both Veda and Tantra Shastras are one in holding that there can be no liberation without tattvajnana. In the Nirvana Tantra, Shiva says, O Deva, there is no liberation without tattvajnana. According to Veda, a sadhaka, in order to become fit for nirvana, must have first accomplished the fourfold sadhana. He must have acquired the faith that Brahman is alone everlasting, and have no desire for happiness either on earth or in heaven. He must possess the 6 virtues, Shama, Dhamma, and so forth, and must long for liberation. He then discusses, Vikara, and ponders on the Mahavakya, that thou art, Tattvam Asi, and thus realizing the unity of Paramatma and Jivatma, attains the knowledge, He I am, Soham. In Tantric Upasana, the Janakanda is mingled with the Karmakanda. The Agama teaches the ignorant Pashu, steeped in dualism, Varabhava Sadhana, in which dualism and non-dualism are mingled. It thus endeavors to raise them to the divine state of Jivan Muktas, the state of pure monism. Manu says, no dualists to be Pashus. Non-dualists are Brahmanas. Rudrayamala says that Virabhava is revealed for the development of jnana. After perfecting jnana and attainment of Brahmasiddhi, the sadhaka becomes devata in a pure state of sattva. The Vedanta and philosophic shastras are replete with instructions and arguments touching non-dualism, but they do not indicate the path by which one can be in actual practice non-dualistic. For this reason, we see Vedantic Pandits deeming it unclean to touch a low-caste man such as a Shudra. They also observe endless distinctions as to what should or should not be eaten, and what should and should not be offered to Devata. Tantra Shastra, however, says that non-dualistic bhavadvaita, should be accompanied by non-dualistic action, kriyadvaita. The Yoga Vasistha, Ramayana, says that to the Muni who realizes non-dualism, advaita, in bhava, in kriya, and in objects, dravya, in all these three matters the world seems but a dream. According to the instruction of Tantra Shastra, the sadhaka rises in the early hours of the morning and, sitting on his bed, meditates as follows. I am the Devi and none other. I am that Brahman who knows not grief. I am a form of being consciousness bliss, whose true nature is eternal liberation. Again at noon, sitting at worship, he does Bhutashuddhi, and therein merging the 24 tattvas, beginning with earth and Paramatma, and thinking of the Paramatma and Jivatma as one he meditates. He I am. Gandharva Tantra says that after due obeisance to the Guru, the wise sadhaka should think, He I am, and thus unite Jivatma and Paramatma. In all Sthula Dhyana of Mahavidyas, forming part of daily worship, Tantra Shastra everywhere enjoins meditation on the Mahadevi as not different from, but one with, the sadhaka's Atma. The Kali Tantra says that after meditating as enjoined, the sadhaka should worship the Deva as Atma. He I am, Soham. Kubjika Tantra says that the sadhaka should think of his Atma as one with her. Nila Tantra in the Dhyana of Tara says that meditation should be done on one's own Atma as one with the savior goddess, Taran. In Gandharva Tantra, Mahadeva says, as regards the Dhyana of Tripura Sundar, that the man who meditates on the unattached, attributeless, and pure Atma, which is Tripura, as one with, and not different from, his own Atma, becomes himself her, Tanmaya. One should become her by ever thinking, she I am, Saham. Again, in the Kali Kula Sarvasva, Shiva says that whoever meditates on the Guru and recites the hymn of the spouse of Shiva and thinks of Kalika's Atma as one with his own Atma is sure Sadasiva. Similarly, Kularnava Tantra says, the body is the temple of Devata, and the Jima is Deva Sadasiva. Let the sadhaka give up his ignorance as the offering, nirmalya, which is thrown away, and worship with the thought and feeling, He I am. It is not only at times of worship and so forth that the sadhaka is enjoined to meditate on her who is Paramatma, as one with his own Atma. Shiva teaches that our thought and feeling should be non-dualistic in all that we do, in eating, in walking, and so forth. Hence, in the Gandharva Tantra, Shiva says, I am both the Deva and the food offered to him, the flower and perfume and all else. I am the Deva. There is none other than me. It is I who worship the Deva, and I am also Deva of Devas. Again, it is ordained that at the time of taking Karana, wine, and the rest, they should be offered to the fire of consciousness in one's own heart, uttering the mantra, and thinking that Kula Kundalin extends to the tip of his tongue. Let the sadhaka say, the liquid shines. I am the light. I am Brahman. She I am. I offer ahuti to my own self svaha. He who does sadhana of the Mahavidya in Varahara with such Advaita Bhava attains by her grace to Divyabhava, and with the thought, I am Brahman, becomes liberated whilst living, and on death is one with Mahadeva. In the Devigata, Shri Shri Deva says, he becomes myself because both are one. Again, the Mahanirvana Tantra enjoins a similar non-dualistic feeling in the mantra to be said when taking the dravya, wine. The ladle is Brahman, the offering is Brahman, the fire is Brahman, the offering is made by Brahman, and to Brahman he goes who places all his actions in Brahman. Satchidananda Mahavidya, in undistinguishable union of Shiva and Shakti, can alone be worshipped with such non-dualism of feeling. Although Tantric worshippers are divided into 5 communities, namely Shakta, Shaiva, Vaisnava, Ganapatiya, Saura. The first alone are all Dvijas, since all worshippers of Savitar, Gayatri, the mother of the Veda, belong to the Shakta community. The Matrika Bheda Tantra says, Savitar, the mother of the Veda, was born of the sweat of Kali's body, that Deva grants the threefold fruit, and is Shakti of Brahman. Sadhakas belonging to the other 4 communities worship their respective male devatas, associating with them their Shaktis. Thus the Shaivas worship Shiva under the names Uma Maheshvara, Shiva Durga, Kali Shamkara, Ardhanarishvara, and so forth. The Vaisnavas worship Vishnu under the names Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayana, Sitarama, Srihari, and so forth. In the Nirvana Tantra, Sri Krishna says, to those who do japa of Radha first, and then Krishna, to such I, of a surety, grant a happy lot even now and here. By uttering the name Sitarama, Sita coming first, one utters the Tara of Mahadeva, and for this reason it is also called Taraka Brahma. The Sauras perform their worship with the mantra, obeisance to Sri Surya, accompanied by the Shakti who reveals. Moreover, the Maya Bhaja, Hrim, which is the pranava of Deva, is added to the Mula Mantra by every sect. This clearly shows that all these 5 sects are directly or indirectly worshippers of the Brahman, who is Shiva Shakti, Shiva Shaktiatmaka, both in his Nirguna and Saguna aspects. Kaivalyopanishad says, by meditation on the 3-eyed, blue-throated, serene Lord Prabhu, Parameshvara, who is without beginning, middle, and end, who is one and pervades all things, who is wonderful, Siddhananda itself, accompanied by Uma, the Muni goes to the source of all being, Bhutayoni, to the witness of all, who is beyond all darkness. Hence, in the Tantra Shastra, Shiva has said that the Shiva Shakti Tattva is the cause of Tattvajnana, and therefore japa should be done by a mantra in which they are united. That is, one attains Tattvajnana, which is liberation, by worshipping Brahman as mother and father. All mantras being composed of Shiva and Shakti, one should meditate on Shiva Shakti as being one. In the Tantra Shastra also Shiva has said that there is no difference between them who are inseparably connected, Avinabhava Sambandha. He who is Shiva is also Shakti, and she who is Shakti is also Shiva. Fatherhood and motherhood are merely distinctions of name. In reality, they stand for one and the same thing. The Tantra Shastra again says that Shakti, Maheshvara, Brahman, all denote the same being. Male, female, neuter are verbal and not real distinctions. Shakti, Maheshvara, Brahman. All 3 denote the one eternal Mahavidya, who is Satchidananda. Although the Mahavidya is in truth nirguna and eternal, she assumes various mayic forms, varying according to the gunas, for the fruition of the desires of sadhakas. It is said in Kandi that she ever appears to fulfill the purposes of devas, and at such time she who is truth eternal is commonly said to he generated. In the Devyagama it is said, Mahamaya, who is Sitrupa and Parabrahmasvarupin, assumes by her grace towards sadhakas various forms. We may meditate on Mahadeva as either female or male, for these terms may be attributed to any gross body. They cannot, however, be attributed to her insofar as she is Satchidananda. Sadhakas of Shakti worship Brahman as mother, for in the world the mother aspect alone of her who is Brahman is fully manifested. In the Yamala, Shiva says, Deva may, my beloved, be thought of as female or male, or the Satsidananda Rupan may be thought of as Niskala Brahman. But in truth she is neither a female, male, neuter being, nor an inanimate thing. But like the term Kalpaval, a word in feminine gender denoting tree, feminine terms are attributed to her. In fact, the main cause of the birth and nourishment of men and animals is their respective mothers. Their fathers are merely helpers, sahakar. Every jiva on issuing from his mother's womb lives on her milk and receives his first initiation with the mantra Ma, mother. The first preceptor, Adiguru, of every man is his mother. She is his visible devata. His first lessons are learnt of her. It is the mark also of the earth to generate and nourish all jivas, like a mother, by producing for them all kinds of fruits and grains and holding them in her bosom. Hence, we are not wrong in saying that the world is full of the mother. In mathematics, 0 has no value and is merely an empty, formless, nirakara thing, indicative of infinity until it is joined to an integer. But when joined to the figure 1, it converts it into 10. Similarly, when she who is formless Brahman is joined to her own prakriti, consisting of the 3 gunas, spoken of in Shruti as the unborn one, red, black, and white, then she assumes for the fruition of the sadhaka's desires 10 different forms, Dashamahavidya, whose variety is due to difference in the proportions of the 3 gunas. There are the 10 Mahavidyas, who are Shiva and Shakti, Shiva Shaktimai. These 10 forms are Kali and Tara, the Mahavidya Sodash, Bhuvaneshvar, Bhairav, Chinnamasta, Dumavat, the Vidya Bagala, the Siddhavidya Matang, and Kamala. Some tantras mention 18 Mahavidya, but these are forms of the 10 with slight variations. Of the 10 Mahavidyas, Kali is Shuddha Sattva Guna Pradhana, Nirvikara, Nirguna Brahma Svarupa Prakashika. It is this primordial form which alone directly gives Kaivalya. In Yogina Tantra, Deva says, Now see my form, Rupa, which is Brahmananda and supreme. Listen, this form is the supreme state, Paramadhamma, in the form of Kali. There is no Brahman form higher than this. In Kamadhenu Tantra, Shiva says, In the void is Kali, who grants Kaivalya. Tara is Sattva Gunatmika and Tattva Vidyadayini, Sodashi, Mahatripura Sundar, Bhuvaneshvar, and Chinnamasta are Raja Pradhana and Sattva Gunatmika, and hence they grant Gaunamukti in the form of heaven, Svarga, Aishvarya, and so forth. The forms of Dumavat, Bagala, Matang, and Kamala are Tama Pradhana, and hence their sadhana is done in Satkarma, such as causing death to others, and so forth. In short, all the 10 forms of Mahadev give enjoyment and liberation directly or indirectly. The forms of the Mahavidya are divided into 2 groups, namely the Kalikula and Shrikula. So Niruttara Tantra says that Kali, Tara, Raktakali, Puvana, Mardin, Triputa, Tavarita, Durga, and Vidya Pratyangara belong to the Kalikula, and to the Shrikula belong Sundara, Bhairava, Bala, Bagala, Kamala, Dumavata, Matanga, Vidya, Swapnavat, and Mahavidya Madhumata. Of all the Siddhavidyas, Dakshina is, O my beloved, the cause, Prakriti. Kali Kula is for the worship of Jyans in Divya and Vurabhava, and Shrikula is for the worship of Karmans in Divya, Vura, and Pashubhavas. The Tantra Shastra gives an account of the mantras, yantras, mode of worship, and so forth for all the 10 or 18 Mahavidyas. But almost all Tantric writings hymn the greatness of, and give the highest place to, Kalika, the first Mahavidya for the others, are but different forms of Brahmarupin Kalika. The Nigama Kalpataru says, Of all castes, the Brahmana is the highest. Amongst all sadhakas, the Shakta is the highest. Of Shaktas, he is the chief who does japa of the Kali mantra. Pichila Tantra also says, of all the mantras of the Devas, that of Kalika is the best. Even the vilest can become Jaivanmukta simply through this mantra. In Yogan Tantra, Shiva says, this Vidya Kalika is Maha Maha Brahma Vidya, through whom even the worst may attain nirvana. Even Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshvara are her worshippers. She who is Kali, the supreme Vidya, is Tara also. The notion of a difference between them has given rise to various mantras. Again, the Kamakya Tantra says, O Parameshvari, 7 lakhs of Mahavidyas remain hidden. Of them all Sodashi is said to be the most sublime. But O Deva, the mother of the world, Kalika is the mother even of her. Niruttara Tantra says, without knowledge of Shakti, O Deva, there is no nirvana. That Shakti is Dakshina Kali, who is the own form of all Vidyas, Sarva Vidya Rupin. The Yamala again says, as is Kali, so is Tara, and so are Chinna and Kuluka. O Deva, thou who art the supreme Kalika, art also the Marti, which is composed of these 4. In the Vedic system, Sagnika, fire-maintaining, Brahmanas achieved their ends by the offering of oblations to the 7 lolling tongues of fire named Kali, Karal, Manojava, Sulohita, Sudumravarna, Sfulingan, and Deva Vishvaruchi, 1st Saptaka, 2nd Kanda, 4th Sutra. Another important characteristic of the Tantra Shastra remains to be mentioned. Although this scripture is very liberal in matters of practice and worship, and does not recognize distinctions of caste and so forth, it has yet repeatedly enjoined sadhakas to keep this akara hidden from ignorant pashus. Of Kaulas it says that they are at heart shaktas, outwardly shaivas, and in gatherings Vaisnavas. It also contains injunctions such as that the teaching should be kept as secret as one would the knowledge of one's mother's illicit love, and that if it is given out the sadhaka's purpose is frustrated, and so forth. In the Gandharva Tantra, Shiva says that only such men as are without dualism, have controlled their passions, and are devoted to Brahman, are entitled to this Shastra. He alone is entitled who is a believer, pure, self-controlled, without dualism, who lives in Brahman, speaks of Brahman, is devoted to Brahman, takes refuge in Brahman, who is free from all feeling of enmity against others, and who is ever engaged in doing good to all beings. Others are not true sadhakas, Brahma sadhaka. It should not be told to pashus, to those who are insincere, or to men of shallow knowledge. For this reason, Shiva has used symbols in the teaching of all dhyanas, mantras, yantras, and modes of sadhana of devas and devas. The meaning of these symbols is not known to any but the Sadguru. Hence the secret mysteries are unintelligible even to the learned without the grace of the Guru. In the Kularnava Tantra, Shiva says, there are many gurus who know the Veda, the Shastras, and so forth. But, O Deva, rare is the guru who knows the meaning of the supreme tattva. Hence, in order to know the true meaning of the dhyanas and so forth, there is no other means than to seek refuge with the guru who knows the meaning of all agamas. It is owing to ignorance of the true nature of Devata that even Brahmavidya, who is subtler than the most subtle and consciousness itself, seems to be a gross thing. Even learned men do not shrink from saying that this Brahmamai, whose desires are fully realized, Purnakama, is fond of offerings of blood, flesh, and so forth. In the Jnana Samkalan Tantra, Shiva says, Agni is the Deva of the twice-born. The Devata of Munis is in their hearts. Men of small intelligence worship images. To the wise, Devata is everywhere. That is, Karman Brahmanas worship Agni as Shvara. Yogis see the Devata in their own hearts. Men of small intelligence, that is, compared with the others, worship the Devata in images, and high-souled seers of the Tattva see Brahman everywhere. In fact, much as a teacher shows his little students small globes and maps in order to make them understand the nature of the great earth, so gurus counsel sadhakas of no great intelligence and of inferior adhikara to meditate on sthula forms in images and pictures, so that their wandering minds may be rested, and they may learn the true aspects of devata. Unfortunately, however, ignorant men consider the sthula form to be the true aspect of the devata. In the Kularnava Tantra, Shiva says that some meditate on the sthula to still the mind, which, when so stilled, can fix itself on the sukshma. The sadhaka should first learn from the guru what quality or action each limb of the image represents, and should then practice meditation on the subtle, otherwise the gross form will itself become for him mere earth or stone. In Kubjika Tantra, Shiva says, "O Lady of Mahesha, one should meditate on the formless," here used in the sense as opposed to forms of images, etc., along with the form. It is by constant practice, O Devi, that one realizes the formless. Hence sadhakas who desire liberation should always think of the Svarupa Tattva of Brahmavidya Kalika. Of this Svarupa, the Deva says in Mahabhagavata, "Those who long for liberation should, in order to gain freedom from the bonds of the body, meditate on that aspect, Rupa, of mind, which is the supreme light, Jyoti, Sukshma, and Niskala, Nirguna, the all-pervading, unbeginning, non-dual soul cause, which is Satsidananda itself. This is the Svarupa of the Deva, which is beyond all mind and speech." The Markandeya Purana says, "The Mahamaya is Niskala, Nirguna, endless, undecaying, unthinkable, formless, and both eternal, Nitya, and transient, Anitya. That is, Mahamaya Kalika is free from Kala, Maya, and free from gunas, without end, imperishable, eternal, and not transient, as is the world, Jagat, formless, and hence, as such, is not the object of meditation." In the Kurma Purana, Vishnu, in the form of a tortoise, says that the Supreme Deva is Nirguna, pure, white, stainless, free from all duality, and realizable by the Atma only. This state of hers is attainable only by jnana. In the Kamada Tantra, Shiva says that eternal Kali, who is Supreme Brahman, is one without a second, either male or female. She has neither form, adara, or upadi. She is sinless and imperishable, Sachidananda, the great Brahman. She who is eternal Brahman has neither appearance, avirbhava, nor disappearance, tirobhava, and being all-pervading, she cannot be said, like other devas and devas, to reside in any particular loka. Thus Brahma resides in Brahmaloka, Vishnu in Vishnuloka, Rudra in Kailasa, and Shri Krishna in Goloka, but Mahadeva is always and everywhere equally present, though for the fulfillment of the desires of sadhakas, she appears in particular forms in their minds and hearts. It is clear, therefore, that her sthula aspect is maya-made, maya-maya, and transient, anitya. For this reason, Shiva, in the Gandharva Tantra, says, "That aspect, rupa, of the deva, which is the supreme bliss and the great cause of the worlds, neither appears nor disappears." In the Kularnava Tantra, Shiva says, "It neither rises nor sets, nor grows nor decays. It shines itself and makes others shine without any help. This aspect is without condition, anavastha, and is being only, satamatra, and unknowable to the senses, agokara. That is, the Svarupa aspect of the Mahadev, who is supreme bliss, is the root cause of this world of three gunas. This aspect has no appearance or disappearance, and no growth or decay. It is self-manifest, and manifests all other objects. It is beyond the states of waking, dreams, and sleep. It is unattainable by speech and mind, and is being itself. In fact, just as fire, which, though pervading all objects, does not show its power of burning and lighting, and cannot be put to use for cooking and so forth, until it has been generated by the friction of two objects, so Although the Sinmay is all-pervading, she does not become visible, nor does she grant one's desire without the action of sadhana. Again, just as the sun itself, motionless in the distant heavens, by its rays draws moisture from the earth, so the Mahadev, who is the abode of all Shaktis, though in herself changeless, nirvikara, creates, and the like, the world, by means of the 8 Shaktis, Brahman, Vaisnavi, Maheshvar, and other devatas, presiding as her creative and other Shaktis. For this reason, in the yantra of Mahadeva Kalika, see Kalikopanishad, the sadhaka worships the 15 Shaktis Kali and others in the 15 corners, the 8 Shaktis Brahm and others on the 8 petals, the 8 Bhairavas and Vatukas Asitanga, and the rest at the edges of the 8 petals, the 4 Devatas, Vishnu and others, at the 4 corners of the yantra, and the 10 Dikpalas, Indra and others, in the 10 directions as being the rays of Kalika, who is herself a mass of pure light, Tejogana. The Mahadev is worshipped as the Marti, consisting of Shiva Shakti, Shiva Shakti Maya, in the Bindu at the center of the yantra. Although the Agama Shastra, which grants Advaita Bhava and educes Tattvajnana, has been revealed by all-merciful Shri Shri Bhairava and Bhairav, it is still unknown to a mass of people. Many, in fact, today despise the Tantra because it contains Virakara and Kulakara, and some even refuse to admit that it is a Dharma Shastra at all. If they had read the Tantra Shastra intelligently and learned its principles from sadhakas truly versed in it, they would have realized how mistaken were their notions of it, and instead of despising it, would certainly have admitted that this Shastra is the only means of liberation for the undisciplined, weak-minded, and short-lived. Seeing that wine, flesh, fish are consumed and sexual intercourse takes place in the world at large, I am myself unable to understand why many people should shudder at the sadhana of Panchamakara to be found in the Tantra Shastra. Do these acts become blamable only if made a part of worship, upasana? All know that ghee, which nourishes and promotes longevity, causes serious stomach disease and even death if taken in too large quantities, whilst snake poison, which kills, will yet cure and lengthen the life of a dying, delirious man, if it be purified and given under suitable conditions, with a cold bath, a diet of whey, and so forth. Similarly, the great physician, Vaidyanatha, himself, has prescribed the mantra of Adya Shakti, possessed of all Shaktis, and the invigorating Panchamakara as sadhana suitable for the cure of the malady of existence, Bhavaroga, of the sinful jivas of this dark Kali age, and as a means whereby they may attain the supreme state full of eternal bliss, imperishable and immortal. All classes of physicians prescribe the use of wine, fish, and flesh in measured quantities for the acquisition of strength by patients who are weak and have a low vitality. On that account, the medical science does not deserve to be hated. Similarly, the Tantra Shastra does not deserve to be blamed for prescribing the Panchamakara for the liberation of jivas suffering from the disease of worldly existence. Shiva has nowhere said that sadhakas of Shakti should always drink wine, always slaughter animals and eat their flesh, and always enjoy women, and that thus they will attain liberation. On the contrary, he has counseled various means for checking excesses in these matters, and he has in particular controlled license by making these acts part of the worship of Shvara. It is the degraded conduct of a number of great pashas who pretend to be sadhakas, which is the cause of the public dislike for and hatred of the Tantra Shastra. In the Mahanirvana Tantra, Shri Sadashiva says, "Wine is Tara the Savior in liquid form, Dravamai. It saves jivas destroying dangers and disease and grants both enjoyment and liberation. But wine, if drunk in contravention of rule, Vidi, destroys the intelligence, reputation, wealth, and life of men. Even a Kaula who has received Abhiseka 100 times is to be deemed a Pashu and without the pale of Kuladharma if he is addicted to excessive drinking. In the Kularnava, Shiva says, "O my beloved, he who kills animals for self-satisfaction in contravention of gastric ordinance, avidanena, will dwell in a terrible hell for as many days as there are hairs on the body of the animal." These utterances of Shiva clearly show that he has nowhere ordained the free use of panchamakara by people in general. He has ordained virakara or kulakara only for sadhakas of the nivritti path who long for liberation. Such sadhakas, free from duality, nirvikalpa, as they are, wish to see the Sachidananda aspect of the Mahadev, and Shiva has prescribed the panchamakara to enable them to realize the Ananda aspect. Just as a man who knows not sweetness is given sugar or honey to eat, so the sadhaka is made to taste the fleeting objective, visaya, bliss, Ananda, of panchamakara, so that, thus controlling his 6 enemies for the time being, he may have a notion of the eternal Brahman bliss, Brahmananda. This momentary taste of eternal Brahman bliss makes the liberation-desiring sadhaka eager for and industrious to gain it. But after the attainment of this natural, sahaja, Brahman bliss, he no more longs for the 5 makaras and becomes gradually devoted to divyakara. If a sadhaka takes wine in a limited way, after purification, the outgoing of his senses, is weakened, and the mind or inner sense is stilled, so that he is thus fitted for suksma dhyana. For this reason, wine is called cause, karana. In the Kularnava Tantra, Shiva says, Ananda is the self, rupa, of Rahman, and that exists in the body. Wine is its revealer and is hence drunk by yogis. Wine and flesh are taken with brahmajnana for the satisfaction of all devas, and whoever partakes of them for self-gratification is a sinner. That is sadhaka sto sadhana with panchamakara for the satisfaction of the devatas whom they worship and the development of brahmajnana in their hearts. But whoever takes them for his own enjoyment is doomed to a terrible hell as a great sinner. Shiva has also said in the Kularnava, "One reaches heaven by the very things which may lead to hell." The 5th makara, that is, sexual intercourse, is the root cause of the creation of the world of jivas. All jivas, be they devatas, men, beasts, birds, fish, insects, or flies, are produced by the sexual union of their respective parents. In this world, every male is an individualized, vyastbhuta, aspect of Shiva, the Adipurusa, and Kanda says, all females in all the worlds are part of the Mahashakti. The Kurma Purana says, the Mahadev is herself one, present in many parts or divisions, anekavibhagasta, beyond Maya, absolutely pure, Mahamaya, Ishvar, eternal, stainless, Niranjana, ancient consciousness, Chinmay, the first Purusa, Adipurusa, of all Purusas. The Gandharva Tantra says, the male form, Pumso Rupam, the female form, and any other good form, all this is undoubtedly her supreme form, Paramam Rupam. One Brahman, becoming dual, appears as Shiva and Shakti, and that aspect in which there is union of Shiva and Shakti is the true aspect of Satchidananda Brahman. It is from this aspect of blissful Anandamaya union that the world is created, and for that reason men and all other creatures ever seek happiness. The bliss of the reproductive power of males and females manifests in their bodies only at the time of sexual union. At this time, ignorant men remain intent only on gratifying their passion, but sadhakas, possessed of the knowledge of Kula, then meditate on the yoga blissful, Yogananda, form, murti, of Shiva and Shakti, present in the hearts of males and females, and, calling to mind the meaning, artha, of the mantra of their Istadavata, do japa of it. In the Kalikula Sarvasva, Shri Sadashiva says, by doing japa of mantra and by adoration of Bhagavata, the consort of Shiva, at times of sexual union, A man becomes, like Shuka, free from all sins. In another place he says, the consort of Shiva should be worshipped by becoming Shiva. True Shakti sadhana consists in considering all girls and women, old and young, and of all castes, as the visible forms of one's own Istadevata, and, according to one's means, worshipping them with clothes, ornaments, and so forth, or bowing to them as mothers with the Istamantra in mind, and not treating them with neglect or contempt under any circumstance. In the Kaulaval Tantra, Shiva says, one should make obeisance on seeing a young woman of a Kaula family. One should bow to any female, be she a young girl, or flushed with youth, or be she old, be she beautiful or ugly, good or wicked. One should never deceive, speak ill of, or do ill to a woman, and one should never strike her. All such acts prevent the attainment of siddhi. At the present time, a measured use of wine, flesh, and so forth, and a thorough respect for woman, as for the devata, are particularly seen in the civilized society of the West. Satisfied at this, the Mahadevi, who is the Queen of Queens, has granted to the people of the West the light of science and sovereignty over the whole world. Srimat Adinatha Mahakala has, in the Karpurati Stotra, called the Svarupa Stotra, briefly described the mantra, yantra, dhyana, and sadhana of Srimat Dakshina Kalika, who is Parabrahman, Parabrahmarupan. This supreme tattva is hard to attain even by such shvaras as Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. Mahakala himself says, neither Datta, nor Shah, nor Hari knows thy supreme tattva. However, in accordance with the teachings of my Paramaguru, Mahamahopadhyaya, and most worshipful Ramananda Svam Siddhantapankanana, the crest gem of Tantrikas, now gathered to the feet of Shiva, I write this Svarupa commentary under the name of Vimalananda Dayan, of this Karpurati Stotra, in consonance with the views of Tantra and other Shastras. Prayer. At the feet of Sharju Sharad Kalika, may the Mahadeva, who is called Kalika, because she is without beginning or end, whose body is imagined to be blue of color, because like the blue sky she pervades the world, and because she is Chidgana, Sattvagunamai, who is imagined to be black, because she is colorless and above the colored gunas, whose hair is disheveled, Muktakesh. Because though herself changeless, she binds infinite numbers of jivas by bonds of Maya, symbolized by her disheveled hair, and because she makes liberated Mukta, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshvara, who are Kesha, who is imagined as having the sun, moon, and fire as her three eyes, because as the Virad, the witness of the world past, present, and future, she sees everything, who is pictured as wearing the dead bodies of two boys as her ear ornaments, because as said in Agama and Nigama, the childlike and unperturbed Nirvikara, Sadhaka, is very dear to her, who being the sole creatrix, preserver, and destructress of infinite millions of worlds, has on her body the mark of the yoni signifying creation, full and high breasts denoting preservation, and a terrible visage signifying the withdrawal of all things, who is said to have large teeth and a lolling tongue, and to hold in her hand a cup made of human skull, because the Chinmay Mahadev drinks the wine of delusion arising from the tamas guna of her sadhaka by means of sattva pradhana rajoguna, who is pictured as wearing a garland of severed heads, because she is Shabda Brahman, Shabda Brahmarupan. And the heads are the 50 letters, whose upper and lower right hands are seen to be making the Abhaya and Vara mudras, because she both destroys the dangers and grants the desires of Sakama Sadhakas, whose upper left hand is depicted as wielding a sword, because she severs the bonds of illusion for the Niskama Sadhaka, whose lower left hand is seen to hold a human head, because she grants him Tattvajnana, who is called Digambar, space-clad, because being Brahman, Brahmarupan, she is free from the covering of Maya and unconcerned, Nirvikara, who is pictured as having a waist chain of human hands, because hands are the principal instrument of work, karma, and at the close of a kalpa, all Jaivas, with their karmas, are merged in the avidya shakti of Mahamaya, who is seen standing on the breast of corpse-like Shiva, because the supreme state Paramapada and Svarupavastha, or Mahadev, one with Shiva, is nirguna and changeless, nirvikara, who is seen in Viparta Maithuna with Mahakala, because at the beginning of a kalpa, she who is ever blissful, Nityanandamai, and being united with Shiva, feels pleasure in the work of creation, which she effects by bringing the changeless Parashiva under her dominion, Vashbhuta, who is again said to live in the cremation ground, because when at the end of a kalpa all things in the universe from Brahma to a blade of grass are dissolved in Mahakala, she is in and one with that Mahakala, who may be thus compared to a cremation ground, and because at the death of Jivas she exists as the individual, Vyasti, Jivatma, in the burning ground, whose yantra for worship is composed of a circle symbolizing Maya, an 8-petaled lotus denoting the eightfold Prakrti, 3 pentagons representing the 15 avayavas, and a bindu denoting Shiva Shakti, because she is, as Paramatma, in the gross and subtle bodies consisting of the 3 gunas and 24 tattvas, whose bija krim, the queen of mantras, is pure sattva guna, and consciousness, Caitanya-mai, and grants both enjoyment and liberation, who is worshipped as Daksina, because she alone grants the full fruits of all forms of upasana and yajna. May she, this Mahadev, who is Satchidananda Rupin and forgiveness itself, pardon all offenses committed by me in the explanation of this her hymn. Shambhu with his 5 mouths is unable to relate thy qualities. Pardon all my childishness. Be propitious. Guard my life. Guard my repute, and guard my wife, sons, and wealth. And at death grant me liberation. O Mother of the world, obeisance. Shar Vimalananda Shvam. Hymn to Kali, Karpuradi Stotra, verse 1. O Mother and Spouse of the Destroyer of the 3 cities, they who thrice recite thy bija, formed by omitting from Karpura the middle and last consonants and the vowels, but adding vamaksa and bindu, the speech of such, whether in poetry and prose, like that of men who have attained all powers, issues of a surety with all ease from the hollow of their mouth, O thou who art beauteous with beauty of a dark rain cloud. Commentary. Inner sense. With respectful obeisance to the beauteous feet of Swami Ramananda, I write this Svarupa Vyakya, named the Grantor of Pure Bliss, Vimalananda Dayini. O Mother, Mata. The root ma is to measure, to which is added the suffix tersh is mater, that is, she who measures out or gives, she who grants enjoyment or liberation, according as the sadhaka is desire-ridden or free from desires. Spouse of the destroyer of the 3 cities. The 3 cities are 3 bodies, gross, subtle, causal. She is the Shakti of him who grants liberation from these bodies. As the power holder, Shaktiman, and his power, Shakti, are one, it is she who is granter of such liberation. Kaivalya Upanishad says, from the Atma, the root, the bliss, looking on all alike who abides within the 3 cities, is born the multiple and various world, and into him these 3 cities are merged. They who recite. That is meditating on the same as being one with the Atma of the Sadhaka. Kalika Shruti says, one should always think of Atma as Kali. Those who do attain the 4-fold Purusartha, whether directly desired or not. Todala Tantra says, O Deva, K grants Dharma, R grants Kama, I grants Artha, and M grants Moksha. O beloved, the recital of these combined gives Nirvana Moksha. This etat. Thy Sattva Satchidananda aspect, denoted by the bija krim, triple trikritang. That is the triple aspect, sattvika, rajasika, tamasika. Bija denotes the aspect in which thou art the cause or the world. Although as Satsidananda Rupin thou art nirguna, when free of Maya characterized by the karma of Jivas and Kala, thou becomest the seed in the creation of the world, what time Jivas must enjoy the fruit of their karma. In the Devagsta, Deva says, Then I who am Atma, sit, Parabrahman, and called the One, assume the bija, seed, aspect, through union with my own Shakti. The causal body of which I have aforetime spoken is avyakta, in which the world exists as seed, bija, from which issues the subtle body. Karpuram, Saguna Brahman the Kalpaka, or fashioner of the world, omitting therefrom. Omitting from Mula Prakriti, composed of sattva, rajas, and tamas gunas, the middle rajas guna, which is U, and the last tamas guna, which is M. It is thus composed of sattva guna alone. The Jnana Samkalan Tantra says, A is sattvika, U is rajasa, M is tamasa, prakriti is these three. Adding, powerful to give nirvana moksha, and by maya, to grant the desires of sadhakas, and in whom the pure sattvaguna predominates. The Tantra Kalpadruma says, K on account of its brilliance is the Chitkala, Jnana. Associated with the fiery letter, R, she is auspicious and full of all tejas. As I, she grants the desires of sadhakas. As Bindu, she grants kaivalya. Beauty of dark clouds. Thou who should be meditated upon as of a dark, nila, color, because thou art Siddhakasha, and dost possess the compact Tejas Shuddha Sattvaguna. In the Nirvana Prakarana of Yoga Vashista, it is said, because Shiva is Vyoma, she is seen as black. Tripurasara Samukaya says, as being liberation, she who is attained by devotion, bhakti, should be meditated on, as being like the sky itself, free from clouds. Verse 2. O Maheshi, even should one of poor mind at any time recite but once another doubled bija of thine, composed of Shana, and Vamashravana, and Bindu, then, O thou who hast great and formidable earrings of arrow form, who bearest on thy head the crescent moon, such an one becomes all-powerful, having conquered even the Lord of Speech and the Wealth-Giver, and charmed countless youthful women with lotus-like eyes. Commentary. Maheshi, possessor of the great power of creating, preserving, and withdrawing, at any time, Kadachit. Durgarama Siddhantavagsha is of opinion that by the use of kadachit, it is meant that unlike other religious karma, which can be done only in a state of purity, shuchi, japa of the mantra of Kali can be done at any time, whether one is in a state of purity or not, sauka shauka kala. Here he says one should not give up the worship if there be a birth or death in the house. The Tantra Shastra says that one should do japa of the mantra, whether one is in the state of purity or not, and whether walking, standing, or sleeping. Recite, japati. Meditate upon. Of dual aspect, dvanvam. Having the dual aspect of Shiva Shakti, the Tantra Shastra speaks of the king of mantras being generated by the union of Shiva and Shakti. Another bija, bijamanyat. Thy causal, karana, aspect, which is the bijahum. In the Yamala it is said, it is with the double shabdabja, which is hum, that she awakens the mass of shabda. Ishana is shvara. Kathopanishad says, Purusa is the size of only a thumb. He is like smokeless fire, the Ishana of what has been and will be. He is today and he is tomorrow. This is that. Indu is immortality. Vamashravana is the power of granting speech and of attracting forms, rupa. The Tantra Bhidana says, U is Pairava, subtle, sarasvat, attractor of forms, who does grant nirvana liberation. The Mahanirvana Tantra says, the forehead of her who is Nitya, Kalarupa, Arupa, and Shiva himself, is marked with the moon on account of immortality. Dost bear the half-moon, Chandradakud, earrings, whose earrings, things very dear, are formed of two sadhakas who are like Maheshvara and simple as boys. that is, childlike simple sadhakas, who have true knowledge, are dear to her. In the Viveka Kudamani, it is said, just as a boy plays with toys heedless of hunger and other pain, so the wise man plays happy, unattached, and selfless. Such a sadhaka attains all forms of knowledge and riches, and can charm the whole world. Mahagora Balavatams. There is, however, another reading given by Durgarama Siddhantavagsha, namely Mahagora Balavatamse, that is, whose earrings are formed of frightful arrows, bana. Verse 3. O Kalika, O auspicious Kalika, with disheveled hair, from the corners of whose mouth 2 streams of blood trickle, they who recite another doubled bija of thine, composed of Sha, Vaishvanara, Vamanetra, and the lustrous Bindu, destroy all their enemies, and bring under their subjection the 3 worlds. Commentary. Kalika. Ka is Brahma, A is Ananta, La is Atma of the universe, I is subtle, Ka is Brahma, A is Ananta, Tantra Bidana. Thus it is said that Mahadev is the subtle, beginningless, and endless Atma of the universe. Thou who art Brahman without beginning or end. In the Asita Stotra, in the Adbhuta Ramayana, Sharirama says, I bow to that thine aspect which is Purusa, without beginning and end, the unmanifest Kutastha superior to thine aspect, as Prakriti, the Atma of the universe appearing in multiple and differing forms. Durgarama Siddhantavagsha derives the word Kalika as follows, he who dissolves, Kalayati, the world is, Kala or Shiva, and she who shines, Divyati, that is plays, Kridati, with him is Kalika Kala, plus Ikan plus A equals Kalika. With disheveled hair, Vigalita Chikure, that is one who is free from all vikaras, such as the passion for arranging the hair and so forth. Streams of blood, Asradhura. This blood indicates the red, Rajas Guna. Mahadeva is without that, for she is Shuddha Sattva Guna. Recite, Japati. Meditate upon, of dual aspect, Dvanvam. The Bija Hrim is both Shiva and Shakti. In the Devagita, Mahadevi says, H is the gross body, R is the subtle body, I is the causal body, I am Hrim the Turiya. Sha, who is the aspect of subtle Bija, Vaishvanara, which is full of Tejas, Vamanetra, that is, with Maya consisting of pure Sattva Guna, Indu, this is the Shakti, which gives immortality, 3-syllabled Daksina. Daksine is Daksina in the vocative, and the latter is the Satsidananda aspect which grants Kaivalya and is indicated by the 3-syllabled mantra. Nirvana Tantra says, the sun, death, is established in the south, Daksina. The name of Kali makes him flee in all directions with fear, hence she is called Daksina in 3 worlds. Kamakya Tantra says, just as Gurdhan, Daksana, given at the end of rite, causes it to be fruitful and gives liberation, so this Deva grants the fruit of all karma, and hence she is called Daksina Kali. The same Tantra also says, Purusa is on the right, Daksina, and Shakti on the left. The left conquers the right and becomes the granter of great liberation. Hence, she is called Daksina Kali in the 3 worlds. Durgarama construes these words as follows, Daksine Trayaksare Ati by Samdi Trayaksareti, that is, Daksine Ati Trayaksare. As upasargas can shift their position, Hati has been placed in the verse after Trayakshar. Atitrayakshar is the vocative of Atitrayaksara. Atitrayaksara means Atikranta, Adhakarta, or placed under, Trayaksara, Shiva, Yaya, by whom? She, that is, she who has placed Shiva under her. The whole then means, O Dakshina, who does stand on Shiva. Trayaksara literally means the 3-lettered one, which is the pranava, Om, and is used for Shiva. The Mahimna Stotra, see Greatness of Shiva Ed. A. Avalon calls Shiva Om, and another stotra calls him Trayaksaramaya. The same commentator then says that there is a different reading for Dakshina Triaksareti, namely Dakshina Kaliketi, which he explains in two ways. A. Dakshina Kaliketi equals Dakshina Kalika. Ati equals Dakshina Atikalika. The last word is the vocative of Atikalika, which means Atikranta, Sadarsh Krita, made similar to, Kalika, Megajalam, a bank of cloud, Yaya, by whom? She, that is, she who looks like a bank of cloud. The whole then meaning, O Dakshina, who has the appearance of a bank of clouds. B. Dakshine Kaliketi equals Dakshine Kalika Iti, which means O Dakshina Kalika. The word Iti is Svaruparthaka, that is simply indicates that she is addressed as Dakshina Kalika. Examples of the elision of I after E in Samdi are Shakuntaleti and Megajalepi Kaliketi. Verse 4. O destructress of the sins of the three worlds, auspicious Kalika, who in thy upper lotus-like left hand holdest a sword, and in the lower left hand a severed head, who with thy upper right hand maketh the gesture which dispels fear, and with thy lower right hand that which grants boons. They, O Mother with gaping mouth, who reciting thy name, meditate in this way upon the greatness of thy mantra, possess the 8 great powers of the three-eyed one in the palm of their hands. Commentary. Sword. Kirpanam. The sword is knowledge, jnana, by which the bonds of ignorance of the desire-free sadhaka are severed. See Shivadharmotara. Severed head. Chinnamundam. The human head is the seat of tattvajnana, free of attachment. Terrible countenance. Prakatita Radhane. Her white teeth, indicative of the white self-manifesting sattva guna, bite the red lolling tongue, indicative of rajas guna, and suppress both rajas and tamas by sattva. Precious mantras, manuvibhavam. The 3 krim bijas represent the chidgana aspect of deva, the 2 hum bijas, the sattva guna aspect, and the 2 hrim bijas, the raja pradhana sattva guna aspect. Durgarama Siddhantavagsha explains this in the following different ways. A. Manuvibhava is the vibhava, or sampatti, precious possession, of manus or mantras. This precious possession is the name in the vocative case, Dakshina Kalaik. The meaning of the passage, then, is that those who recite thy name, Dakshina Kalaik, which is the precious possession of mantras, and meditate on this, thine appearance possess the powers, and so forth. B. Manuvibhava is the vibhava of the Manu, that is the 22-syllabled mantra of Kali. This possession is the name Dakshina Kalika. C. Manuvibhava is Manu, mantra, vibhava, Gataka, of which the Deva's body is the body of which mantra is the generator. The bodies of the Devatas are produced by their mantras. The passage thus means that they who recite thy name, Dakshina Kalika, and meditate on this thine appearance generated by mantra, possess the virtues mentioned above. See last verse. Kalika, Kalik. 3-eyed one, Triambaka. The same commentator, Durgarama, offers 3 explanations of the term Triambaka used for Shiva. A. He who has 3 ambakas or eyes is Triambaka. B. He who has 3 mothers or ambas is Triambaka. The Kalika Purana says, as Hara is born of 3 mothers, he is known, even amongst Devas, by the title Triambaka. C. Todala Tantra says, the Vidya Bhuvaneshvar is in heaven, earth, and the nether world, Patala. He who delights in the Devi as threefold in 3 places is called Triambaka. He is with Shakti and is worshipped in all tantras. Verse 5. O Mother, they who recite thy charming bija, composed of the first of the group of letters, followed by Vahni, Rati, and beautified by Vidhu, thrice, the Kurka bija twice, and thereafter, O smiling face, the Laja Bhaja twice, followed by the 2 thas, they, O spouse of the destroyer of the diva of desire, contemplating thy true form, become themselves the diva of love, whose eyes are as beautiful as the petals of the lotus, which Laxmo holds in her playful dance. Commentary. Whoever. Yeah. Even the most sinful. The Kalikula Rahasya says, whoever he be who remembers Durga, with or without reverence, is delivered from evil and attains the supreme end. Recite, Japanti. Meditate upon, thy bija. Durgarama Siddhantavagsha calls it the 9-syllabled bija. First letter, Vargadiyam. The aspect of consciousness, Chinmayarupa, which is the beginning of creation, placed on Vani, Vanisamstham, full of tejas. Associated, Vidurati Lalitam, that is cooling and beautiful, thrice, Triyam. That is the 3 aspects of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Kurcha is Shabda Brahman. Lajja is Brahman associated with Maya. Tuthas, Svaha, the revealing Shakti of fire, smiling face, Smitamukhi, because she is always blissful. Spouse of the destroyer, Smarahara Mahile. Shakti of Shiva, who is the destroyer of passionate desire, that is, she destroys the lust, anger, and so forth of her sadhakas. Thy true form, Shvarupam. That which is not different, in essence, from Jivatma. Shvarupa is explained here as the Rupa of Shva, that is, Atma, meaning the oneness of Paramatma and Jivatma. Kalika Shruti says, one should always think of Atma as Kali. Kalikula Sarvasva says, he who worships the spouse of Shiva, thinking that his Atma is Kalika's Atma, and meditating on the Shiva-like Guru, is Sadashiva himself. Yogin Tantra says, he who thinks, even if it were for a moment, I am Brahman to him, the Deva gives unending fruit. One's own body should always be thought of as the body of the Istadavata, and so the whole world should be considered as her body. Durgarama explains Svarupa in the following ways. A. The true form is that indicated in the previous or following verses. B. It is that of the 9-syllabled mantra. C. It is that indicated by the letters composing the mantra. For instance, Varada Tantra says that in Krim, K is Kali, R is Brahma, I is Mahamaya, Nada is the matrix of the universe, and Bindu is the dispeller of sorrow. In Hum, H is Shiva, U is Bhairava, Nada means the supreme, and Bindu is the dispeller of sorrow. In Hrim, H is Shiva, R is Prakriti, I is Mahamaya, Nada the generatrix by the universe, and Bindu the dispeller of pain. Contemplation on mantras constituted of these letters reveals their Caitanya. Japa of mantra, without knowing its Caitanya, is useless. Become themselves, Kamarupa Bhavanti. They acquire the power of assuming whatever form they desire and of charming the whole world with their beauty. Verse 6. O Devis of full breasts, whose throat is adorned with a garland of heads, they who meditating recite any 1 or 2 or 3 of thy very secret and excelling bijas, or all thereof together with thy name, in the moon-like face of all such the Deva of speech ever wanders, and in their lotus-like eyes Kamala ever plays. Commentary. Diva, the self-manifest one, full breasts, Pinastanadya. The milk of these is the food with which she nourishes the world, and the drink of immortality with which she liberates her sadhakas. Whose neck? Mundasragatishaya Lasatkanti. She who is Shabda Brahman consisting of 50 letters. Niruttara Tantra says, she is adorned with a garland of heads representing the 50 letters. Kamadhenu Tantra says, in my throat is the wonderful bija of 50 letters. Again, I worship the Mother, the source of the universe, Shabda Brahman itself, blissful. Vishvasara says, blissful Brahman is adorned with Shabda Brahman, and within the body is represented by all mantras. Bija, Murti, appearance, in the individual aspect as Prajna, Taijasa, and Vishva, and in the aggregate as Sha, Sutra, and Virad. Devagta says, the causal self is Prajna, the subtle-bodied one is Taijasa, and the gross-bodied one is Vishva. Similarly, Sha is spoken of as Sha, Sutra, and Virad. The first is the individual, Vyasti aspect, and the second, the aggregate, Samasti aspect, eyes, Netra. Not to speak of themselves being wealthy, the sight of them gives wealth to others. Bhairava Tantra says that Kamala and the Deva of speech never forsake them for 3 generations downwards. Verse 7. O Mother, even a dullard becomes a poet who meditates upon the raimented with space, 3-eyed creatrix of the 3 worlds, whose waist is beautiful, with a girdle made of numbers of dead men's arms, and who on the breast of a corpse, as thy couch in the cremation ground, enjoyest Mahakala. Commentary. Dullard, Jadatira. One whose mind is smitten with passion for the world, poet, Kava. A great Jnana, meditates, Dhyayan. Who in mental vision sees thee, who art Sachidanandarupin, whose loins, Bahuprakarakirta, Kankai Parilasanitambam. At the end of each kalpa, all Jaivas abandon their gross bodies, and existing in their subtle bodies in which their respective karmas inhere, form part of the avidya, which is in the causal body of the Brahmarupin, associated with her own gunas, svaguna, until they are liberated at some future time after the commencement of the next kalpa. Hence the girdle adorning the loins, lower belly, and generative organ of the Mahadev Viradrupin, capable of producing children, is fashioned of the arms and hands of dead Jaivas. For these arms and hands were their principal instruments for the doing of work, karma. The Shaktananda Tarangan says, with karma is a Java born, with karma he dies, and in the next body again, that karma is attached to him. Devagsta says, in her at dissolution, Javas and their karmas are merged in undifferentiated mass, just as all which is done, Vyavahara, merges in dreamless sleep, Susupti. Again the Deva says, it is I who create the whole world and enter therein with prana, maya, karma, and so forth. Raimented with space, Digvastram. Raiment is the covering of Maya. She is without that and above Maya. 3-eyed, Trinayanam. Having knowledge of the 3 divisions of time, past, present, and future. Creatrix, Vidhatar. She who at the beginning of the next kalpa gives birth and enjoyment to Jaivas according to their respective samsita karma. On the breast of a corpse, Shavahridi. The corpse is Nirguna Brahman, the couch is the support, Adhara. On Nirguna Brahman, as thy Adhara, that is established in thine own state, Pada, as Nirguna Brahman. Gayatri Tantra says, by the word corpse is indicated Brahman as the dead body, Preta. Gandharva Tantra says, Sadashiva is the couch on which lies the subtle Tripura Sundar. In the cremation ground, Shmashanastha. The cremation ground, Shmasana, is the great ether, Mahakasha, in which all creatures are merged as corpses in the great dissolution, Mahapralaya. In dissolution, even the greatest of creatures are but corpses, and hence it is a cremation ground. Dost enjoy Mahahala, Mahahala Surata Prayuktam. At the end of a kalpa, there being no creation, shapeng inakstav, and there being nost but supram Brahman, shapeng inseparative from Parasva, experiences herself as unlimited, Akanta bliss. Verse 8. Those who truly meditate on thee, the spouse of Hara, who art seated in the cremation ground strewn with funeral pyres, corpses, skulls, and bones, and haunted by female jackals, howling fearfully, who art very youthful, and art in full enjoyment upon thy spouse, are revered by all and in all places. Commentary. Meditate on Dhyayanti, that is, see with unperturbed mind, spouse of Hara, Haravadhum. Hara is he who removes Harati, the threefold pains, Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, Adidaivika, of Jivas. His spouse is Shakti, that is, she who grants liberation to Jivas, and is Sachidanandarupin. Hast entered, Pravistam. Art established, flaming pyre, Prakatitasitayam, Sit Shakti, on account of her being self-manifested, Kant speaks of her who pervades the whole universe as consciousness, Sit. Fearful, Gaurabhi. That is very powerful. Jackals, Shivabhi. That is Mahabhutas, which are auspicious, Shiva, before being made fivefold, Pankurkurta. Skulls and bones, Mundasti Nikarai. The white color of the skulls and bones indicates the white sattva guna, hence associated with the sattva and other gunas of the jivas dissolved in Mahapralaya. Ever youthful, Atyuvatam. That is, she is always the same, fresh, unchanging, and unwasting. Satisfied with enjoyment, Santushtam Uparisuratena. She, after subduing Parama Shiva to her will, has willingly enjoyment in the work of creation, preservation, and dissolution. Nirvana Tantra says, the Vama, she who is on the left, is the grantrix of great liberation after conquering the Daksina, Shiva, who is on the right. Gandharva Tantra says, she who is the sun, moon, and fire, and half of Ha, Shiva, puts down the Purusa and enjoys him from above. Niruttara Tantra says, when Nirguna Kali becomes Saguna, she is engaged in Vipartarati. The Yoga Vasistha in the Nirvana Prakarana says, natural unity is Shiva, creation is, compared with it, unnatural. That is, the Mahadev is Nirguna Brahman in her Svarupa aspect, and the subversion of this Svarupa is the cause of creation. Nowhere, Kvachidapi na. In no birth, humiliated, Paribhava. That is, they are not subjected to birth, death, and rebirth, and attain nirvana. Verse 9. What indeed, O Mother, can we of so dull a mind say of thee, whose true being not even Datta, Sha, or Hari know? Yet, despite our dullness and ignorance, our devotion towards thee makes us talk of thee. Therefore, O dark Diva, forgive this our folly. Anger towards ignorant creatures such as we is not befitting thee. Commentary. Mother, of us all including Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. In the Devi Sukta, Vishnu says, one, subtle, and unchanged, and yet many, thou dost give birth to millions of worlds. Who am I, Vishnu, and who is the other Shiva, and who are the Devas, that we and they should be able to fully sing thy praises? In the Markandeya Purana, Brahma says, when Vishnu, Ashvara, and myself owe our appearance to thee, who has the power to fitly praise thee. In Vishnu Yamala, Vishnu says to Deva, O Mother, none know thy supreme aspect. The heavenly ones therefore worship that gross, stula, aspect of thine in the form of Kali and the rest. The Mahakala Samhita says, when Datta was not, nor Vishnu, nor Kala, when the five Bhutas were not, then thou the cause wert alone, as the supreme Brahman, the being of all that is, a sight, unlimited. She is not limited by the gunas, and is nirguna. Verse 10. If by night thy devotee unclothed, with disheveled hair, recites whilst meditating on thee, thy mantra, when with his Shakti, youthful, full-breasted, and heavy-hipped, such an one makes all powers subject to him, and dwells on the earth ever a seer. Commentary. Laya Yoga is here described in this and following verses. Gheranda Samhita says, one should become Shakti Maya by doing Yoni Mudra. One should be in Paramatma with sweet Shringara Rasa, love sentiment, and being blissful, Anandamaya, should unite with Brahman. The Goraksa Samhita says, raising the Shakti with the Jiva to the lotus in the head, one should become Shakti Maya, and uniting with Shiva should think of all forms of happiness and enjoyment. The Tantra Kalpadruma says, one should meditate on Deva Kundalin as Istadevata, ever youthful, of the age of 16, full-breasted, dark, subtle, appearing as creation, and in the form of creation, maintenance and dissolution, Sursti Sthiti Layatmika. Thy devotee, Bhakta, here the Divya Sadhaka, who is a yogin, by night Naktam, that is, awaking in Brahmavidya, which, though light, is darkness for all ordinary creatures. The Bhagavad Gita says, "The self-controlled man awakes in what is night to all creatures." Naked, vivasa. That is, stripped of the covering of Maya, that is awakened. Disheveled hair, galata chikura. That is, with mind free from all restlessness. The word chikura means both hair and restless. Meditating, dhyayan. On thee as in enjoyment of samarasya, bliss with Paramashiva, enjoying, radhasaktam. By doing laya of merging, the jivatma, in Kundalin Shakti, the ever-youthful, all-pervading genetrix and preserver of all javas. The creative and nourishing function of Kundalin is indicated by the epithets heavy-hipped and full-breasted. Verse 11. O spouse of Hara, should, a sadhaka, daily recite thy mantra for the space of a year, meditating the while with knowledge of its meaning upon the intent, upon thy union with the great Mahakala, above whom thou art. Then such a knower has every pleasure that he wills upon the earth, and holds all great powers in the grasp of his lotus-like hands. Commentary. Spouse of Hara, Haravadhu, charmer of Mahakala, mentally recite, Vichintya Japati. The Kaulaval says that mental, manasa japa, is 100 times more efficacious than verbal, vachika japa. According to Durgarama, the words may also mean recita keeping in mind, the artha or meaning, and so forth of the mantra. For it is said that he who does not know the artha of mantra, the caitanya of mantra, and yoni mudra, is without success, siddhi, even if he do japa of the mantra 1,000,000 times. Unperturbed mind, sustibhuya. The Kularnava Tantra thus enjoins, beloved, when doing japa of a mantra, one should be calm, pure, sparing in food, reverential, self-controlled, unaffected by the opposites, dvandva, steady of mind, silent, and self-disciplined. Meditating on thee, vishintyatvam. The Kaulaval Tantra says, one should meditate upon the spouse of Shiva before japa, and after meditation should again do japa. The sadhaka who does japa and meditation together soon attains success. Upon him, viparitam. The original is viparita in the first case, and Durgarama therefore makes it an adjective of the sadhaka, who he says unites with his Shakti in viparata maithuna. Vimalananda, however, reads it as viparitam, in the second case making it an adjective of thee, the Devai, who is the object of meditation. Great powers, mahasiddhinivaha, such as that by which is gained salokya, sarupya, sayujya, and nirvana, forms of liberation. Verse 12. O Mother, thou givest birth to and protectest the world, and at the time of dissolution dost withdraw to thyself the earth and all things. Therefore thou art Brahma, and the Lord of the 3 worlds, the spouse of Shuri, and Mahesha, and all other beings and things. Ah me, how then shall I praise thy greatness? Commentary. Dost withdraw, Samarati. That is, dost make the world lose itself in thy causal karana, body. Data. She is the creative Shakti of Brahma, husband of Shuri, Shuripati. She is the preservative Shakti of Vishnu, whose spouse is Shuri or Lakshmi. Mahesha. She is the dissolving Shakti of Rudra. All things, samastam. Thou art both the material and instrumental cause of the world. The Triputa Stotra says, thou art earth, Brahma, and creatrix of the world. Thou art also water, Vishnu, and preserver of the world. And thou art fire, Rudra, and the dissolver of the world. As the air of the world, thou art Aishvarya. Another stotra says, she assumes 3 forms of body for the purpose of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. The world being constituted of the 3 gunas, Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra, are her vikirtis. Verse 13. O Mother, people there are who worship many other devas than thyself. They are greatly ignorant and know nothing of the high truth, but I, of my own uncontrollable desire for thee approach thee, the primordial power, who dost deeply enjoy the great bliss arising from union with Shiva, and who art worshipped by Hari, Hara, Virinchi, and all other devas. Commentary. Deluded, vimuda, that is, devoid of discrimination. Enlightened, vibudhai. The Bagala Stotra says, O four-armed, four-headed, worshipful Parameshvari, O Devi Ambika, who art ever worshipped with devotion by Krishna, O Parameshvari, who art worshipped by the Lord of the daughter of Himalaya, grant beauty, grant victory, and so forth. Adya, who art before and the beginning of the world. Union, rati, which is viparata as above described. Wine, that is rasa. Verse 14. O Kali, spouse of Girisha, thou art earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Thou art all. Thou art one and beneficent. What can be said in praise of thee, O Mother? Of thy mercy show thy favor towards me, helpless as I am. By thy grace may I never be reborn. Commentary. Kali, dispeller of the fear, Kala, or death. Thou art earth, Daritr Kalalang Shachirapi Samropi Gaganam. Guptarnava Tantra says, Thou art earth, thou art water, thou art fire, thou art the air of the world, thou art ether, thou art mind as manas, ahamkara, mahat, buddhi, and thou art prakrti. Thou art also, O Mother, Atma. Thou art the supreme. Nothing is greater than thee. O Devi of terrible form showing thy teeth, may my sins be forgiven me. The Triputa Stotra also says, Thou art the Adhara Shakti and the Adhara. Thou dost pervade the world, and the world is in thee. 1. Eka, without a second. Beneficent, Kalyan. Because she grants nirvana liberation to Jaivas, spouse of Girisha, Girisaraman, spouse of Shiva, or he who is in the Giri or Kuta is Girisha, that is Kutastha Brahman, his spouse or Shakti. Though changeless, nirvikara, thou dost appear as the 24 tattvas, namely earth and the rest through thy maya. The Devasukta of the Rigveda says, Thou who art one and many, subtle and the vikaras, gross things, and giveth birth to millions of universes, all, sakalam. Shruti says, Verily all this is Brahman, helpless, agatikam, on account of liability to rebirth despite sadhana. Verse 15. He, O Mahakali, who in the cremation ground naked and with disheveled hair intently meditates upon thee and recites thy mantra, and with each recitation makes offering to thee of 1,000 akanda flowers with seed, becomes without any effort a lord of the earth. Commentary. And 2. For Divya Sadakas, Mahakali, or Parabrahmarupin, cremation ground, Shmashanastha. The cremation ground is Parabrahman, into which in the great dissolution, Mahapralaya, all beings go as though corpses. In the cremation ground, therefore, means devoted to Parabrahman, naked, Dikpatadhara, that is, free from the covering of Maya, whose consciousness is untainted. Meditates on thee, Dhyana Nirata, that is, upon thy Saksidananda aspect. The Rudrayamala says, He who follows the Kula path should do japa of mantra, seeking protection from Deva, who is consciousness, bliss, and source of knowledge, who is all tattvas, whose refulgence is that of millions of flashes of lightning. Sunflowers, Arkanam. Flowers of feeling such as compassion, forgiveness, and so forth, which are functions of the mind called the sun in the Brahmarandra. The Jnana Samkalin Tantra says, O beloved, the mind is seated on the surface of the sun and life on that of the moon. The Yajnavalkya Samhita says, the moon is known to be in the Ida and the sun in the Pingala, Nad. Self-produced bija, Nijagalita Varyena. This bija is here the nectar which naturally flows from the 1,000-petaled lotus. The Mahanirvana Tantra says, the heart lotus should be offered for seat, the nectar amrita, shed from the Sahasrara, for water to wash the feet, the mind as the offering, arghya, memory, sita, is offered by way of flowers, and the vital airs, prana, as and by way of incense. Jnana Samkaleen Tantra says, libation, tarpana, to the Supreme Liberatrix should be made from out the vessel of the moon, and arghya should be given from out the vessel of the sun. Compassion, wisdom, and forgiveness are flowers, as is also control of the senses. So too are charity, daya, and religious merit. Non-injury, ahimsa, to any being is an excellent flower. Bliss is a flower, and so too is the worship of the sadhaka. Whoever offers these 10 flowers attains to the feet of the Liberatrix. In this verse, Savikalpasamadhi Yoga is indicated. Verse 16, O Kali, whoever on Tuesday at midnight, having uttered thy mantra, makes offering even but once with devotion to thee of a hair of his Shakti in the cremation ground, becomes a great poet, a lord of the earth, and ever goes mounted upon an elephant. Commentary. Kali, dispeller of the fear of Kala or death, whoever, here a divya sadhaka, midday, madhyane, at noon, devotion, premna, that is, parabhakti, offers vidarati, merges in thee, that is, attains nirvikalpa samadhi. Patanjala Sutra says that nirvikalpa samadhi is attained by suppression of the vritti of mind in the cremation ground, sitayam, in thee as consciousness, sit, bija. That is here nectar which issues on the enjoyment of the union of Kula Kundalin and Paramashiva. The Gandharva Malika Tantra says, O beloved one, the queen of devas unites with Parashiva, and in a moment, O Deva Parameshvari, nectar is forthwith produced. That nectar, O Deva, is like the juice of lak. With it, O mistress of the devas, libation, tarpana, should be offered to the supreme devata. At home, Gri, in the 1,000-petaled lotus, Sahasrara. Hair with its root, Chikuram Samalam. The mind with its functions, it is such sadhaka who gains both enjoyment and liberation. Verse 17. The devotee who, having placed before himself and meditated and again meditated upon, the abode strewn with flowers of the diva with the bow of flowers, recites thy mantra. Ah, he becomes on earth the lord of Gandharvas, and the ocean of the nectar of the flow of poesy, and is after death in thy supreme abode. Commentary. Devotee, bhakta, the sadhaka who is a yogi on the divya path, the abode, Kusuma Danusho Mandiram, the triangular yoni mandala in the Muladhara. Nirvana Tantra says, in the triangle, the abode of Kama, the linga, is Maheshvara, with its own flowers, adorned with the Svayambhu linga, which is compared to a flower. Goraksa Samhita says, he is truly wise who knows the supreme tejas in the yoni called Svayambhu linga. Others are but beasts of burden. Lord of Gandharvas, Gandharva Shrinpati, a great singer, it is said, there is nothing better than a song. Poesy, Kavitvamirta Nadi Nadina. He becomes like the great poet Kalidasa, is great, Prabhavati. He attains nirvana on being united with thee, who are Satchidananda Rupa. Kurma Purana says, Brahmavads have learnt in all Vedas and Vedantas, the one, omnipresent, subtle, Kutastha, immovable, absolute, endless, undecaying Brahman, the sole supreme Niskala Tattva, higher than the highest, eternal, auspicious, wondrous. Devagata says, O mountain, he in whom Parabhakti is thus generated becomes merged in pure consciousness. Verse 18. He who at night, when in union with his Shakti, meditates with centered mind on thee, O mother with gently smiling face, as on the breast of the corpse-like Shiva, lying on a 15-angled yantra, deeply enlisted in sweet amorous play with Mahakala, himself becomes the destroyer of the god of love. Commentary. Mother, Janan, the progenitrix, at night, Naktam, midnight. Brihanla Tantra says, he who is intent on meditation at midnight or early dawn surely sees the supremely blissful aspect of Deva, meditates, Dhyayat. On thee as not different from the Sadhaka's own Atma, who art Siddhabhasa in his body as a yantra. Gandharva Tantra says, he who is in Advaitabhava and thinks of the self as Devata in the three forms of body thinks of her and his Atma as one. He should worship the Deva as Atma with the articles prescribed. The yantra, which is one's own body, should be considered the best of all yantras. Again, he who meditates on the Nirguna, unattached pure Atma of Tripura, as not being different from his own Atma, becomes one with her. Thi Tuvam, that is Brahmamay. Smiling face, Smaravadanam, because she is ever blissful, being bliss itself. On the breast, Mahakalenoke. On the breast of Shiva, who is inactive like a corpse. She divides herself into two parts, like a grain of gram, namely, Shiva and Shakti, by means of Maya associated with Ika, Kriya, Jnana, whilst at the same time remaining established in her Nirguna Brahman state. 15-cornered seat, Tripankar Pith. This is the sadhaka's own body conceived as the yantra, in which avidya is the encompassing circle. The eightfold prakriti, consisting of earth and so forth, is the eight-petaled lotus. The 5 janendriya, the 5 karmendriya, and 5 prana are the 5 triangles, and the bindu, which is consciousness reflected in maya, composed of pure sattvaguna, is the adorning bija. The Gandharva Tantra says, the Kakra Mantra Maya is the Devata's supreme body, which is Shiva Shakti. The Bhagavad Gita says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, manas, buddhi, ahamkara, these tattvas constitute my eightfold prakriti. Gandharva Tantra says, the subtle body composed of uncompounded, apanchakrta, bhuta, and equipped with 5 pranas, manas, buddhi, and 10 indriya, is the vehicle for enjoyment. Unbeginning and undefinable, anirvatsya. Avidya is the causal upadi. No atma to be different from the threefold upadi. Deeply enlisted, madanara salavanya niratam. Always united in the reverse, viparata, way, with Paramashiva, the Saguna Brahman. The Gandharva Tantra says, when that supreme Shakti, by putting that Purusa down, of her will appears as the universe, then she becomes passionate, and then becoming herself active, the Deva rises upon Bhairava and enhances her own bliss with waves of natural pleasure. Himself also enjoying, Svayam api ratanandanirata. Enjoying the bliss of union in Laya with Paramatma by Yoni Mudra and becoming Shakti Maya himself. The Garanda Samhita says he should do Yoni Mudra and himself become Shakti Maya. He should move in Paramatma with the good Shrangara Rasa. Becoming Ananda Maya, he should be one with Brahman. Destroyer of Kama, Smarahara. The Advaita Sadhaka attains Kaivalya by being merged in thee, who art Paramatma. Verse 19. O Dark One, wondrous and excelling in every way, becomes the accomplishment of those worshippers who, living in this world, freely make offering to thee in worship of the greatly satisfying flesh, together with hair and bone of cats, camels, sheep, buffaloes, goats, and men. Commentary. O Black One, Asita. Asita means free from bondage. Sita means bound. Asita is therefore not bound, or eternally liberated. The root so means to bind. Hamarakosha gives the meaning of Sita as bound. Wondrous, apurva, best. At every step, pratipadam. In succession, step by step. All powers, sarvasiddhi. The 5 siddhis, which are the 5 forms of liberation. The Shivagata says Salokya, Sarupya, Sarsti, Sayujya, and Kaivalya. Know these to be the 5 forms of liberation. The flesh of Palalam. These animals represent the 6 enemies, ripu, or vices, which are specially characteristic of the following animals. The goat stands for lust, kama, as lustful as a goat, chaga. The buffalo, anger, Krodha. As angry as a buffalo, Mahisa. The cat, greed, Lobha. As greedy as a cat, Marjara. The sheep, delusion, Moha. As stupid as a sheep, Mesa. The camel, envy, Matsarya. As envious as a camel, Ustra, man, pride, Mada. The pride and arrogance of man, Nara. The Anandakalpa says, worship should be done by making offering of lust as goat, buffalo, and so forth. Offering is made to thee who art Sidrupa of lust and other vices as articles of offering, Upakara, in worship with the object of ridding oneself of them. Branila Tantra says, in the fire of Atma which flames with the ghee, Havi, of Dharma and Adharma, I ever offer in Homa by the Susumna path, with the mind as ladle, all the functions of the senses, Svaha. In worship, Pujayam. In mental worship according to the manner prescribed, with hair and bone, Loma, Asti. That is the whole, without omitting any part. Such sadhakas attain the salokya and other forms of liberation. Verse 20. O Mother, he who, being a controller of his passions, eats havishyanam, and, being proficient in meditation on thy feet, rightly recites thy mantra 100,000 times by day, and he who afterwards, naked at night, when united with his Shakti, rightly recites thy great mantra another such 100,000 times, becomes on earth like unto the destroyer of Smara. Commentary. Naked Nagna. That is free from the covering of Maya, Nirvikara. Amorous play, Niduvana Vinodena. That is enjoying the bliss of union between Atma and Parashakti. The Kularnava Tantra says, that is coition, Maithuna, in which there is the bliss arising from the union of Atma and Parashakti. Others are but enjoyers of women. Becomes, Siyat, that is, becomes liberated whilst yet living, Jivan Mukta, like Shiva. Verse 21. O Mother, this hymn of thine is the source from whence originates thy mantra. It sings of thy real self, and contains injunctions for the worship of thy two lotus feet. He who reads it at midnight or at time of worship, even his random talk becomes the nectar juice of poesy. Commentary. Thy real self, Svarupakyam, speaks of the dhyana of both thy gross and subtle aspects. Reads, Patati. That is, recites aloud. The Vishuddhishvara Tantra says, O Deva, the reading of a hymn, stotra, mentally, or the recitation of a mantra loudly, is as ineffectual as water in a broken jar. Nectar of poesy, Prasarati Kavitvamartarasa. He becomes full of the sweetness of poesy. The Kalikula Sarvasva says, all whose difficulties and dangers are destroyed by a single reading, as it were flies in a flame. His speech flows like the Ganges full of prose and poetry. Verse 22, numbers of women with large eyes like those of the antelope, impatient for his love, ever follow him. Even the king becomes subject to his control. He becomes like unto Kuvera himself. An enemy fears him as if he were a prison. Living in continuous bliss, the devotee is liberated when yet living, and is never again reborn. Here ends the hymn by Shri Mahakala, entitled Karpuradi Stotra. Commentary. Liberated, Jivan Mukta, and on death gets Vidaha Mukti, no rebirth, Mukta Pratijanu. He gets nirvana in Brahman. The Mahakala Samhita says, whoever constantly and with devotion reads this hymn originating from Mahakala is free from danger, disease, and death, and in the end attains Kaivalya liberation. Here ends the hymn named Svarupa Stotra of Srimati Daksina Kalika by Sriman Mahakala. Here also ends its annotation and Svarupa Vyakya, entitled Vimalananda Dayini, obeisance, to Kali the spouse of Kala, who destroys all sin and is Kala. She who is Tara the Savior, the supreme Brahmavidya, who is adored by the lotus-born Deva. She who is Sharividya, desirous of the welfare of sadhakas, on the path of liberation, to whom Hari and Hara make obeisance. May that Deva, the Mother, who appears in the form of all things, bring forth benefits for all, such as sing her praises. Colophon. Of this king of hymns, wherein Mahakala has described the true self of Kalika, the Karpuradya hymn, untainted by worldly desire, which gives bliss to devotees, the aforesaid annotation containing its simple interpretation, as well as the Svarupavyakya commentary, which gives pure joy, was prepared by me, Vimalananda Svam, for the enlightenment of sadhakas in the Saka year, 1837. Mayest thou reside in the throat of him who reads it. Om Tat Sat Om.